Last we saw our heroes.
Oh god, last we saw our heroes, we were getting absolutely fucking flattened by a dude with a flesh katana. That shit sucks. Fuck that guy.
This man's all hands.
This man is all hands. And this podcast is all hosts because I am Curtis.
I'm Carl.
I'm Alex. I didn't do the homework, so I'm going to let these two take over.
Yeah, well, we both did all of the homework. Luckily, Curtis, how far past Atticus did you get?
I also did not do the homework, so I'm going to let these two take it as in
I did do
our two guests that we have.
Damn it, Curtis, you fucking
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
No, wait, we'll go back.
No, it's fine. We have guests here. I did some of the homework, but not nearly enough to be an expert on it, but luckily we have two experts with us.
From the east, we have returning guest. That's Mrzwanzig.
It's me. Hi, I'm here. I play video games sometimes. Sometimes I even play them fast. Hi.
A cursed pastime. And then from the west.
And from the farther east, if you continue to go around.
Yeah, if you go all the way around.
Directions work.
Because everywhere is east and everywhere is west.
Unless you're a cocoon, then it ends at the hole, I guess, is what the map kind of implies.
Yeah, you go up.
Let's all meet at the cocoon hole, shall we?
We're going to start talking about directions. I'm going to be like, I don't know how to get there. And Alex is going to be like, just look at cocoon and you'll be fine. I'm like, no, that's not how it works for me.
Well, it'd be nice if the map had cardinal north that you could use as a direction.
Sure would be. Well, luckily we don't have to do too much backtracking.
Oh, none at all. Absolutely no reason to backtrack across the entire Bulls landscape.
Back to Urba and back to Tation's Tower and all over the place and through enemies that are like level 1 at this point for us that you
over
can't
the
avoid.
river and through the woods.
So yeah, we're talking about the missions today.
But yeah, Ninnyz is here. I don't know if you've been on this season. I don't think you have.
No, I was hoping to wait till like the ass end of it to explain
well, good news.
my whole experience throughout all of this, because I've been doing something a little bit different than just a casual playthrough.
So basically, we've mentioned a few times, but you have been Mrzwanzig's apprentice in learning the speedrun to this game as we've been covering the game.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that he's taken time out of his wonderful day with
I guess evening.
Yeah, his wonderful evenings that he could be spending doing something productive, and instead he's coaching my ass.
That's his way of just getting confirmation that you will be doing this run for the relay eventually. So he's not the only one.
Well, there's some strict competition to that. If like he said multiple times, if I wanted to get a run into the marathon, I learned 5 again.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's 5.
If I wanted him to do something for the relay, I would have taught him 5 for sure. That's one of the ones that always struggles.
That's where I'm gonna have to come in with it.
Yeah, Mrzwanzig, you were on when we first learned the paradigm system.
True.
And so now we are here to finish off this game and, I guess, push the system to its limits.
I think you were also on technically every episode of this season where we would just talk about how we said something wrong and you corrected us. And
speaking of which, we're out here getting our ass handed to us in the QRTs, and by the QRTs I mean the Discord. How do you pronounce the baby adamantoys?
So I learned that apparently the word chelid is actually a proper English word that means like it's like a family of turtles, like the Chelidae or whatever is some taxonomic group. I don't exactly know the details, but supposedly it's chelid. But I also have been saying adamantchelid for my entire life.
Well, we've been saying adamantchild because I was like, it's probably just pronounced the same.
Yeah, that's the same.
That sounds much cooler though.
Adamantchelid is the Scarlet Rot,
the red zone in Elden Ring.
Oh yeah, the Chelidae is one of 3 living families of turtle suborder Pelodira.
Well, there's only going to be 2 living families of tortoises after we're done today.
Unless you're in me, Curtis, or Alex's game, in which that whole populace is thriving.
Alive and well.
Well, you see...
Yeah, we followed that, we fulfilled that Seath's wishes and not...
The cycle of violence has ended.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, so I actually also did not do the homework in the sense of continuing my playthrough that I was doing alongside the podcast because I'd been doing too many other 13 related things for the past few months.
Yeah.
I wonder why that would be.
Yeah, I know, right?
You don't have infinite time compared to the other project you're working on.
I guess projects if you include Ninnyz in this.
Right, yeah. I mean, that was part of it. But luckily for everyone, I have a good deal of experience with these missions. I did part of the routing for the all missions speedrun back in 2017, I think it was. End of 2017, I, along with Maelstrom, routed that category. And so it's been a few years since I've done it, but I should know these missions pretty well that I don't necessarily need to have played them recently.
I think this is also the kind of thing where it's so involved that I feel like that is information that will definitely stick with you to some degree.
If I remember right, too, you did the commentary for really, really long-a-thon for the Platinum percent. Is that right?
Yes, there was a Platinum race in, when was this, 2020 or something, by Serena.
God, was it that long ago?
It might not have been. Honestly, I don't exactly remember.
I was getting ready to experience the horror of the passage of time once again.
Nah, it
What
might
do you mean,
have been
2020? Last year? Oh, God. Oh, no.
Was it you who told us about Really, Really Long-a-thon back in FF10 days?
Yeah, I think so, because there was going to be an FF10 run on it of some kind, I think.
Nemesis, probably.
Yeah, probably.
You gotta get all the trophies.
Because that's 23 hours, I think, is the record right now.
Oh, Lord.
Yes,
help me.
it's a monster.
Shortest record or to longest record?
It's shortest. Well, that's before cutscene remover was put in there. Now it's probably closer to 9-10 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't cut out that much with the cutscenes because all of the later stuff.
I was going to say, what, it's 19 now?
Yeah. Much more manageable.
But,
look, you know what? When you get to hour 17, I bet that does feel a lot more manageable to be like, oh, I only have 2 more to go than 7 more to go.
Oh, for sure.
See, the problem in that run was always that you would have, without the cutscene remover, you'd have lots of bathroom breaks for the first half of the run when you're doing the story. And then when you're doing all the monster capturing and all the monster arena stuff and all that, then it's just, there's no breaks.
Yeah, you have to be just really dehydrated for the for the last
It becomes
half of it.
a race of stamina and how you can control your own
Oh,
body.
you can do the Iron Man triathlon? I have done Nemesis percent in FF10.
You must reach nirvana and be able to stop the movements in your body in order to complete this.
Are there co-op runs where people hand off the controller mid-run, just to kind of...
They've done that before at RPG Limit Break. They've done FF10 where they have multiple runners.
It's the same run, but it's 2 people running it. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually they involve teams. So it'll be a race of 4v4. So everybody would take a 3-hour stint.
Okay.
I also know that there are some speedruns that allow for breaks, ones that are that long where it's oh, well, you can take a break, but you have to come back to it within 12 hours to restart your run and a thing like that. I wonder if there could be bathroom breaks factored into that where it's it's like a job. It's every 8 hours you get 2 15-minute breaks.
Yeah, a lot of runs are that way, actually.
And time the pauser,
At the disc change screen, you get an intermission or something like that.
Yeah.
Those days are behind us, though.
The next time I decide about a speed run, I'll think about, is this possible that I can do this with somebody? So that way I don't have to sit here and learn another 5-6 hour plus speed run again. Because it's funny you were talking about stamina, and I'm sure we'll probably touch more on the speed run of this game. But yeah, it's intense. It's very
especially
intense.
just kind of watching you and Mrzwanzig teaching you how to do this. A lot of these fights are very much oh, you need to be paying attention to 3 things at once, and it's very easy to make one small mistake and then you're well, I just have to retry. There's 3 minutes of me working on this one fight just down the drain. Maybe not 3 minutes, but
Yeah.
A lot of it is stuff where I, having had like 8 years of experience by now with 13 as a speed game, I don't need to pay attention to every single small thing anymore because I kind of have internalized a lot of it. So I know which things I need to pay attention to at what points. And, I don't need to read notes while doing the fight and such. But yeah, when you're starting out, it's a lot to take in all at once.
It's a very impressive speed run just from what I've seen of it, which is, I think, most of it now at this point. But
I think right now I'm just impressed to learn that I still have a lot of patience. I mean, I feel myself as a person is very patient, but like this game does try me a lot because you can be so zoned in on it and like everything starts to become muscle memory. And like today, you can just make one small minuscule error over and over, and then you just don't kill PC2 in the second stagger, and it still has like a quarter of health left. You're just like, I'm losing it. I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, on a much, much smaller scale, that kind of stuff happens in like Dark Souls. Like I went back to any %, which is a like sub 20, I think is like the world record now, sub 20 minutes. And my time is not nearly that fast, but there's small little menuing things where it's something as easy as like, whoops, I didn't have the pine resin ready to use and I didn't have like the right weapon in my right hand. So now I need to do menuing in this very small time window. And whoops, that just killed the run because I was nowhere near like prepared for it. So it's like everything that you need to kind of line up, and it eventually becomes muscle memory and you're like, oh, this is easy. But like there's certain times where you have one small thing that's just different and you're like, well, now everything's a disaster.
Just run FF8 anyway. That shit easy.
Last week I guess we technically didn't finish Atticus.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we just assume that we beat him, or
I don't know what happens when you beat him.
We did talk a little bit about strategy for Atticus at the end, where Carl gave me a couple ideas about how to kind of take him on, right? But
I had another idea as well after diving more into the missions and getting some of that sweet, sweet loot that we can get, where I was like, oh, this would actually be really helpful against Atticus. And I was thinking the Genji glove. Is it the Genji glove or the Genji ring?
There's a Genji glove.
Yeah. So that will let you, very Final Fantasy X style, break damage limits. So that way, in order to do it, you can get past the 5 9s. Like you can get
on
over
into the
10,000,
6s, baby.
Or over 100,000 damage. And I was like, that'll really help in that fight because he's got a lot of HP. And then I was looking into where can I get this accessory? And it was like, one drops from Atticus. I'm pretty sure like he drops it. I'm like, well, that's out of the question. And then the other one is from an Adamantoise that we will probably want to speak on a little bit in depth as well, because that was another mission that I kind of just went right for with a certain strat, because that's a really good way to just level up in general and make a lot of gil in general. And then another one was from, I think the I don't know how to pronounce it, but the one Seath that we had a lot of problems with in the one mission that has the inertial barrier, but I think it's 2 of them, which I just got to, and that was my most recent instance of, ayo, fuck this game, I'm done for right now.
No, we'll get to the double rack fight. It's a thing.
Yeah, I went into it thinking I might be able to squeak this one out, and I did. And I'm using new strats. This is a new Carl, where I'm not just like, no, Fang, Vanille, Lightning, they're the only 3 players in the game. I'm like, I'm tapping in Snow on this one. I'm using Hope, and my party lead is Fang. I'm giving her the Genji glove, and she's gonna be doing High Wind and stuff, and it's like still not even close. And I was like, okay, fuck this. I'll come back to this later.
Yeah, no, I made my way there no less than an hour ago to get 2 free ass whoopings.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about the let's finish up
Atticus. Mrzwanzig, what did we do wrong? What do we need to do to take down this monster?
So the main thing that I think is really important, from what I watched back of your stream, because I wasn't there when you were dying to this repeatedly.
For 2 hours.
Yeah. From what I saw, you just kept dying in the last phase when he starts doing his really powerful charge up move where he just hits you 4 times and does like 10,000 damage or something. Essentially, once you're in that phase, the best thing you can do is just have one character permanently in Sentinel.
Yeah. that makes sense.
So just having paradigms like Sen Com Com, Sen Med Sin, I don't know, do whatever, just a bunch of Sentinel paradigms is the safest way to deal with Atticus.
It's very interesting too, because at this point in the game where we're doing like this caliber of boss fights, you start running out of real estate for paradigms, because you're like, I want to do this, this, and this. And then you're doing a fight and you're failing and you're like, well, this paradigm would really help. And then you go in after battle and you start arranging things and you're like, well, I can't have that paradigm because I need this one. And oh, I want to have the double one so I can do this and I need to use this strategy. So it becomes like a puzzle piece where like
I really like that about it.
It's really cool because I mean, I've said this a million times, but there's so many ways that this game could be broken if there was like way more paradigms that you could switch into at any point, like if you just had any of them at any time, as well as like if you could change weapons throughout the fight or change in different members of your team, like that would completely break the game. I'm sure they could still throw in some shit, like there would still be combinations of bosses that could absolutely destroy you, but I really like how there's so much at your disposal, but it's also kind of limiting, so it leads to situations like this where you're like, oh, okay, well, I really need to get creative now.
Yeah, I mean, with Atticus, as long as you've got one, since he doesn't have any AoE abilities, as long as you've got one Sentinel who can consistently survive his attacks, you're golden. Then it's just a matter of beating him before he casts Doom on you after 30 minutes, I think.
Yeah, and an interesting thing too is I was looking up just some strategies as well, and one of them was like, just have lightning in the Sentinel phase, because her Sentinel's really good because she uses evade and she never takes damage, so all of these attacks will miss, and like there's all these like passive kind of things that you can do like that, and I was just like, well, that requires way more Christogen points than I have right now. I will not be doing that. I'm still working on getting all 3 roles maxed out for the characters that I have, which I'm getting very close, but
in an all-mission speedrun, you don't even have access to the level 10 Crystarium because that would require beating the game first, and that's slower. So
yeah, that makes sense. That's nuts. Do you want to talk about that strat really quick?
I mean, it's essentially just what I said. You just have Snow in Sentinel the whole time, and specifically, there's also like a weird niche thing that we do to chain him really fast, which is having Saz do Cold Blood and then shift into Sentinel because of weird math things that honestly would take too long to explain properly. But you can actually chain him up.
Got it.
You can chain him up really fast by doing Cold Blood, which normally only works when they're staggered. But since his chain resistance is really high, these like small numbers you can get per hit, and Cold Blood does a lot of hits. It just works. It's magic.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, new strat developed for me then.
That was kind of what happened with me. So I wanted to do it the Carl method, go in there, just be blind. The only thing I knew about it was from Mrzwanzig's ranking system that Sen Com was nicknamed, the Atticus paradigm. So I was like, okay, well, I was like, I need to have at least Sen Com. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but it's whatever. So I go in there and I do my usual thing where I buff the party up, I debuff the enemy, and I start building chain, and I notice it's super slow. So I change my party leader to Fang to Saz and go, okay, well, as long as I can get some chain on there, I can Cold Blood it and build it up. And I noticed that it was like building up super slow. And I was like, well, maybe it's something to do with Sentinel. So I did that and I changed it over to Sentinel. It was the same thing. I was like, what's happening? And then I changed to a paradigm, I guess, that didn't have a Sentinel in it. So he hit me. And then I panicked, so I went to another thing and I did Cold Blood again, but with like Vanilla's medic. And then I noticed the chain was going up wildly. And I was like, why is this? Like, why did this all of a sudden happen? So I did that fight for about like 2 to 3 hours, and just I kept getting to the part where it was Doom, and he had way more health than he needed to. So I was like, fuck, what do I gotta do? I look it up, I find the answer, and I go, well, that's stupid. Why does it work like that?
You think this far in the game, you'd figure out why it would do the thing it does.
13 keeps its secrets to the very end.
Yeah, that is canonically the Carl method of not looking anything up and then being like, there was no way I would have figured this out on my own. I should have looked it up immediately. So any listener, never use the Carl method.
Sometimes the Seath mission that you did to unlock the chocobos, that's actually kind of satisfying to use your method for.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
That's a good victory. Yeah, but I mean, like this, no. The game's being so mean to you. Just be mean back.
Exactly.
At this point, they expect you to be mean.
I think I also just hit 70 hours in my gameplay, which again is inching up to like half of my gameplay, I think, for well, maybe not inching up, but a lot of it has just been in the extra stuff. So I'm kind of past the point of I'm past the honeymoon phase of being like, oh well, I want to figure this out, and I'm just like, no, I'm gonna look up guides. Where do I get things?
It was really funny because I watched you like do the Tonberry mission, and you were like riding high. You were like, "This game's awesome. I love this." And then right after you go into the Fault Warrens area, and then just like gradually, and then you get to Atticus.
It's one of those things where it's just kind of they're it's really, really cool additional content. Again, it feels like Final Fantasy X, where it almost feels more like a New Game Plus thing, where it's these super challenging things that you have to come at in a certain like from a certain angle, and it just becomes a time investment, and it's like I have not had the time to invest in it that it needs. So it's like, and it's also kind of like I don't know how much interest I have in dedicating that time, because like when we can talk about we can probably talk about it now, but we're in the part of the game where the most efficient thing to do is just kill adamantoids. So that you can get a lot of gil from it, maybe potentially get some good drops from it, and get a lot of CP.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about the ending of the Atticus fight, like what happens afterwards with Titan, and then maybe we'll talk about adamantoids, because they are in fact a mission coming up. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
But yeah, after you beat Atticus, there is a final scene with Titan. Where Titan says,
usually when we do a boss, we get a silent kind of acknowledgement from Titan, and he just blasts us
where
with
he
his hand.
fucking vaporizes us. Yeah. And this time he says, "Fortune smiles upon the strong and worthy. Surrender not to despair. The future of life's cycle goes with you." And then depending on who we have as a leader, they say something different. Just random, like, "Oh wow, I guess he wasn't so bad after all," or whatever.
Yeah, Snow's like, "What do you know? I think the big guy approves."
Yeah.
Or Verneal's like, "You want us to live. You were trying to help us," which kind of was what she implied the first time. Is like, oh, so he's trying to help us by threatening to kill us. Like,
yeah,
that's very Eidolon behavior.
Very interesting. Oh yeah, he's trying to help us by sending Atticus after us.
They're always nagging us.
I feel like Verneal lives by the idea of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, as like a personal motto.
I guess, does he send Atticus to
No,
us?
he sends a behemoth, and then Atticus
sends a behemoth,
murders the behemoth.
Yeah, and then we murder Atticus. So I don't think that was really... We can't really fault him for that.
Did we save Titan's life from Atticus? Is that what...
Here's my headcanon.
Like he was coming right at me. Thank you.
Here's my headcanon.
You saw him. He was looking at me.
So it doesn't make sense timeline, how we've tackled these missions, but in my head... Since we took care of Atticus when he was trying to like have us kill the behemoth, he was like, okay, here's this other really fucked up one. I'm just going to pop a little Tomberry right there for you. There you go. Enjoy.
Imagine a Tonberry just like rolling up to Titan and just stabbing him in the toe.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I imagine just bringing a Tonberry into the fight with Atticus and being like, get him.
This is one of those things like you see all the time with like Elden Ring or other things where they, or even like Zelda, where they force like two enemy to aggro each other to see like who wins. Like I want to see that, but with like Tomberry versus Behemoth, like fights and stuff like that.
So after we're done with the Fault Warrens and all of Titan's trials, that's the last of Titan's trials. You're playing.
That's the last we'll ever see of Titan.
Yeah. So there's in greater the Arcalite Steppe, right? There is a ring of like 8, I think, to
7, I think. Yeah,
7 Seath stones that are they're all in order. They give us various missions to take on, and taking these missions sometimes causes like environmental effects in the world to be seen, but some of them are very simple. Some of them is just like go fight some Sahagin. So one's like go fight
3 flans.
Yeah, go fight 3 plants. Fight the Ugalu again. Also, he's the same as last time.
Yeah.
Go and treat with the Juggernaut again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go all the way back to Urba and fight a juggernaut.
Yeah, which at this point is like we were fighting those as regular enemies in chapter 12. It's like no big deal at this point.
I will defend Bhakti's with my life.
That's Bhakti grew up and now we're killing him.
But yeah, now most of these missions, which are like missions 56 to 62, most of them are pretty easy or really easy for in some cases.
Most of them are pretty easy.
I remember getting to the ring, and at this point it was after doing a lot of the Adamantoys farming and being like, yeah, this game is starting to feel like it doesn't respect my time as a player. And then the first one I saw was like mission, and it was like mission ranking like B or A or whatever, like not too scary or anything. And it was just like Sahagin, and I was like, this game is fucking listening to me, and this game fucking hates me because it knows how I feel about Sahagin. As it turns out, I just used Deceptisol on that fight and killed them in like 11 seconds. It's another one of those things where they'll summon in more enemies and it becomes kind of like you got to manage like what is getting called in and prioritize that way. But if you use Deceptisol, you just, Deceptisol, Ruinga, no problem.
I think that mission is called "What's Yours Is Brine."
Yeah, really good pun.
I think I'm fine with going ahead and skipping all the way to mission 62 in the ring because the other ones are just like normal fights. But
literally, it's just like normal fights. The big thing that I wanted to say about it was I hated all the backtracking. Some of them get like put in again. It was a nice like change of pace to get to the Titan trials where it was like, you had to do backtracking and stuff, but it was like very streamlined and an interesting thing. And I was like, oh, I'm glad that I no longer have to like just look all around the world. I've already been all around the world. I don't care anymore. And then we get here and I'm like, cool, they're all in one location. The mark's probably going to be right here. When you activate these stones, the environmental things that happen is because Titan is standing there. And I think that means that like Titan is also sending us these trials. Like he has
I
some
don't know
sort of,
what the implication is. Yeah, is that
because he like screams and then the environment changes and that doesn't do anything like in the game. It's just like, oh, that's neat. Now let me go kill this juggernaut.
Yeah, it just kind of gets dark.
Yeah, it gets foggy dark. And I'm like, oh shit, this is, and then it's just like,
He just let out a big fart.
And then sometimes Titan like clips into the world and you like see his feet and legs like running into the earth, and he's huge. He's so big when you can see his like arms and legs like in the step. You're like, oh my god, like he's a big old boy.
And he the other thing I will say about it is I'm pretty sure every time you finish one of these you get, maybe not every time, but this is where you get a lot of the analects. That gets unlocked in the data log.
That's very true.
For me, the headcanon of these rings are just they're the champion of that like ranking, right? So like a couple of them are like the cap end of like, the B tier, the cap end of like the E tier, A tier, yada yada. That's what I kind of viewed it as. Because like you can unlock some of these and do these missions kind of early. When you're first there in chapter 11, you might be able to like not access them or not complete them, but like you probably like the first couple of ones you probably could complete because they're just like cap end of like D tier enemies.
Yeah,
I think there's actually something in like the meta of the game that might actually lend some credence to that, which is I forget which one I got it on. It was one of these Seathstone ones, but I got the trophy for complete all mid-level Seathstone missions, and that is called Zexat's Chalice, which sounds like a Bloodborne thing, but I don't know who Zexat is.
Zizat. So you get a different kind of trophy for all of the ranks that you complete all the missions of, and they are all references to the 4 Warriors of Dawn from FF5.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, okay, all right.
Nice. That's
There's
cool.
Calgar's Cup, Zizat's Chalice.
Oh, you're right. Yeah,
Dorgan's Trophy and Galuf's Grail, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm looking at the trophy list here.
Yo, my boy Galuf.
Galoof.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the just for these 7 missions. Looks like there is 2 C missions, 1 B, and 4 A missions of these 7 here. So mid-level means everything that is C or B, or is there like another tier above that.
I think A might be the highest tier that I've seen.
That's the highest one I've seen.
I think so.
And we're coming up to like the last couple. So.
It would make sense.
I feel like if anything, this new one that we're trying to get to would be like S rank if there was one.
Yeah, if there was
yeah.
another one, yeah. And I would also argue that Atticus might also fit into that, even though the placement is different.
Since we are talking about like missions in the steppe, if I may take just a small moment to read one line of incidental dialogue. If your party leader is Snow and you're riding on a chocobo and you jump up to something, there's a chance that he will say, "What's up there, Chocobro Dudeski?"
Hey, what's up there, Chocobro Dudeskis?
No fucking, that's not real.
I have never heard that.
We're going to have to get the fact checkers on this.
And the Japanese
Chocobrodutski.
The Japanese version of that is just, "I'm with Nora."
Amazing.
Okay.
We gave a lot of shit to the localizers this season. I feel like credit where credit's due. That is a much better translation than "I'm with Nora."
Are you looking at the script? Is that what's going on, Curtis?
I am. While we were talking, I was reading the Analects and I was looking at some of the incidental data.
Another thing I do want to say, just in terms of being like, oh well, this is now a portion of the game is just like a time grind, is that I timed it, and I'm sure Mrzwanzig probably knows a lot better than me, given like optimizing and routing for completing all of these missions. But in the path that I got pretty good at doing to get back to the Seath Ring, with my PlayStation 3's load times, it would take roughly 1 minute and 30 seconds to get teleported to like the central high pass or whatever of the thing, and then run to the Ring of Stones to complete the next mission. And then it's like, cool, now you have to go back to that cave where the Juggernaut was, and you have to run through a bunch of enemies. That's going to be like another 5 minutes to just get to this fight that might be kind of difficult. And I was trying to like optimize in my own way of being like, okay, if I have 3 TP, which would be essential for me right now to take down an Adamantoise, if I have that, I will go and fight this Adamantoise that I'm running past. And then I would like, to do that, again, I've complained about this before, but you have to switch parties, you have to bring in Hope, you have to reset up all the paradigms. There's no way to like do a favorite paradigm or anything like this. So it was just like a lot of time where it's like 5 minutes just to get to the next thing so that I can have a free like 80,000 CP or something.
Yeah, a ton of the routing for these mission speedruns is making sure that whenever you finish a mission, you're somewhat close to another stone that you can activate, and trying to optimize that as much as possible to cut out movement.
Yeah, and that is another thing too, where obviously I'm too dumb to understand the map, and the naming convention doesn't always lend itself to like knowing where to go.
You wouldn't know it if you.
Yeah, and like
as a casual player, you're never going to optimize that. That's
and I was trying to find like a guide, like I found like an IGN guide or whatever, and it says like where the stone location is, and it says where the mission mark is and stuff, and like that's really helpful. But the problem is, it's like, okay, well, I need to get to this section of Tajin's Tower. What's the closest like sea stone to teleport to get there to then get all the way? And like Tajin's Tower, you have to watch the video of or the cutscene of going up the elevator and all kinds of shit like that. And there was just a lot of downtime when I was trying to just like play the game that I was like,
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah.
So the details of 62.
Yeah, I want to quickly say, just to we can knock a few of these out quickly by mentioning there's one of the other ones of this ring that is actually kind of hard, which is mission 59.
Okay.
I forget the name of it.
Two-faced fiend.
Oh my god, that's the one where you have to fight.
Is that the Zernitra with the little...
With the other ones, yeah.
So there's a bunch of missions that have you fight a Zernitra. You guys talked about it last week. It was one of the final ones of the Fault Warrens area. But there's 3 other missions. Mission 53, 52, and 59 all have a Zernitra. And 59 is the hardest one because there's a bunch of frogs with him, which makes it considerably tougher.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's true.
So how I handled that one really quick is I just had Saz come in. All the frogs are weak to fire, so I start with a calm sab party. Just do 2 blitzes, summon, kill everything with get the Gestalt up, kill everything with just like the car. That way, all I have to do is worry about the Zernitra, which
that's
already
that's a good strategy. Yeah.
which is already just a lot to worry about anyway. Because that out of all the birds, that is the one that I do not want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what I did, but I did struggle with it quite a bit, and I think I kind of just brute forced my way through without. I think I might have had to use renew or something because I still had 2 TP from my Adamantoys farming build that I was forcing my way through. I was like, I cannot optimize this party for the mission because the mission is a one-off, and I have 3 turtles I gotta kill.
All right.
Sorry
So.
again. Real quick. Another reason I think that these stones are connected specifically to Titan is the way that I think Mrzwanzig, you had mentioned to me before, when you get to Titan missions, they're not as fun. You're not reading from the perspective of the Seath.
Entreat with the Zernitra.
Entreat with the just always, that's always in all of the Fault Warrens and all of Titan's Trials, it says entreat. Same thing with these ones. It's just, here's an enemy, entreat with it. He's got some homies now that we're going to make the fight way more annoying.
Are these just reject trials? He's like, yeah.
We're beta testing these trials.
We're moving these stones out, yeah.
They might have to nerf 62 a little bit.
yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Please.
Speaking of which, let's get to the main event, baby. Well, I guess it's not really the main event, but it's the next to main event.
This is the final of this ring of the 7.
It's the final of the ring. I am not prepared to talk about it other than I went into it, tried it twice, and said, nah, no thank you. So,
Indomitable Will.
Would someone else like to take it away?
I can talk about my strat that did not work, so that we can have the experts round it off. When I went in at first, I was like, okay, let me see how my current build does against it, and it did not do well at all. I think there was several one-shots. Again, when we talked about him, he's got the multicast. Which
just to explain what this is, last week, one of the other final Titans trials that was talked about was the Roctavisia, which is the powered-up Seath that flies and casts magic and has the barrier before it's staggered. Now you're fighting 2 of these.
Yeah, it's literally just 2.
And I had enough trouble with 1.
Oh, I have
Roctavisia.
I have actually a lot to say about my failures on this. So I went through, failed the first time. Multicast was just destroying me because not only is it just one multicast where then you need to back up and heal up, but it's there can be 2 slightly after one another. So it can just be boom, boom, you're fucking dead. I was like, okay, let me try something else here. Let me change up my strategy a little bit. I made a little bit more... The weird thing was, I think in my first attempt against it, I somehow immediately got a stagger against the Roctavisia. I don't know how I did that. I don't think I got a preemptive strike. I might have just got lucky somehow. I might even have equipment that has the instant stagger and didn't realize it because I think I was using hope at that point. And it was just even with that, I did not even get anywhere near enough damage to take him down. And my main plan was okay, well, I'm going to try and get a stagger up to 99, and then I'm going to use High Wind, which I got off once. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it did 5 9s of damage, and I'm like, fuck, I really wish Fang was wearing the Genji glove because that would have been way better. So then I did that in, and then I just didn't have the chemistry or the luck to get it off like that again. But one thing that did happen to me, I was like, you know what, fuck this. I'm not going to waste turns with hope buffing everyone up. I'm just going to use all the Sauls that I can. So I used all of the Sauls, and then in order to get to this guy, you actually need a Chocobo because they're up on top of a platform that you have to jump up with a Chocobo.
You got to take your Chocobro Dudeskis up there.
I've seen this platform before, and I'm like, why am I up here? Because there's 3 ways to get down, but there's nothing up there. So it's this looks important.
So the interesting thing about that is the fight, when you're retrying it, you're very close to them still, so you have to kind of back off a little bit. And the one time I tried popping some of the Sauls, it just kind of walked right back into me, and I got kicked into the battle before even using it. So I hit retry. I backed off a little bit. My characters jumped down. I'm like, cool, now I have space. Now I have space to use these sick, very rare items that cost a lot of money. I popped the Sauls. I tried jumping back up, and
You don't
I
have the
fucking
chocobo to
couldn't.
get up there.
And I had to run back to get a chocobo, which did not last the duration of having the souls. And I was just like, this game is trying to make me hate it right now. It's doing everything in its power. But yeah, I don't know. I read some strategies about it, and it was basically like anytime you see multicast, just switch into a paradigm that has 2 sentinels. So like for me, I had Snow and Fang and Hope and Medic, them in Sentinel. And once I see that multicast, I switch in. But didn't have enough time to actually like workshop that anymore and try it. And I just kept kind of dying and being like, okay, I'm going to put this down for a while, maybe forever. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this fight is not very fun to do until you're like pretty close to maxed Crystarium. This is legitimately one of the, I would say, top 2 hardest missions in the game.
So how do you do?
So
it?
what's the secret?
The secret,
Level up.
I mean, yeah, failing that, level up Witch's Bracelets to give you as much magic resistance as you can. Have just ideally Snow in Sentinel pretty much at all times. The Fringe Ward ability, which reduces damage from AoEs when Snow is the one being targeted, is really useful. Okay. And he can actually have a weapon that boosts the effect of that even further. So that can also help. And then you can cast Slow on them, which will help a little bit. You can cast Imperil on them to be able to stagger them a bit quicker. And other than that, just hope you can survive.
Okay, so it is a like, you have to genuinely do this fight. You're not going to be cheesing.
There's no cheese for this. Death doesn't work. I think Random Instant Chain can work on them. I'm not even 100% about that. I haven't tried it.
But you probably want to be a little bit more set up, and you want to make sure that you probably have a good chain duration, because if you get instant chained and then like they get hit with like a Ravager spell, that chain just goes super fast. And like, then you also have the other one that's like casting Aurora on you and your party members flying up
they're
in
all
the air.
Floating and
the speedrun strat that I developed was actually to stagger them both simultaneously, which is really hard to manage because you're constantly getting launched by their attacks. So trying to do anything that requires juggling the chain of 2 different enemies is really tough. But if you the reason for staggering them both simultaneously is that their attacks are actually way weaker when they're staggered. The first thing they'll do after they're staggered is dispel all your buffs, which does suck. But then other than that, their attacks are a lot weaker when they're staggered. And that's the only way that we could actually kill one of them in one stagger. Because otherwise, if one of them is still slinging its powerful spells, we need to keep Snow in Sentinel at all times, or we just die.
I got you, yeah. And you need his extra attacks.
Yeah, and with the extra damage, we can actually one stagger them, and then that was a bit more optimal. But that took me like hours to workshop that strat for it to work, and even then, it's still really hard.
So, quick question about you said having max Crystarium. Do you just mean max of your main 3 rolls, or do you mean like all of them?
I mean, I meant all of them. I mean, you don't need to go that far. In all mission speedruns, we do it with, not even stage 10 unlocked, and pretty much just like essentially having everyone up to stage 9 in their primaries.
It seems like this game was developed around that to like make things possible, but not necessarily like probable to do if you don't have fully leveled up. Like, I feel like there will always be kind of a way to, I'm thinking like challenge run, like Dark's, like even more ridiculous than like a soul level 1 Dark Souls run, which is actually very manageable. That's kind of how this seems. I guess more like a no sphere grid run of Final Fantasy X. It seems like that sort of system.
Former Final Fantasy XIII speedrunning god Logic Dolphin actually used to do like challenges like that on his YouTube channel, and one of the ones I believe he did was only up to stage 8 Crystarium, doing all the missions.
Oof.
Oh wow,
and, that's seriously rough.
Yeah, that I
Yeah.
mean that is also a kind of thing where I feel like that's got to be a lot of accessories at that point, because the damage that you're taking is you're not even going to be anywhere near close to like not even like 9,000 HP for most of your characters, I would imagine.
No, like that's where we are at in like an all mission speedrun, is we're around like 10k HP.
Yeah, which a lot of these things can do one shot.
For most characters, that's only 2 accessory slots, right?
Trying to remember. No, I think the third one should be in stage 8. So you
Okay.
should have 3 then.
But you definitely don't have 4, which is also a major upset. Yeah, because I know people that have done no Crystarium runs in this game, and it's also quite rough.
Not runs, but you can't do that in a
challenge
fast
runs,
setting.
sorry.
But
Right.
yeah.
So that's 62. I think before we move on to the last 2, I want to take a slight step back and go to mission 54, which we haven't talked about.
I was about to
That's
say.
the one we haven't covered. Because
we
like
haven't
I said,
covered.
Atticus is 51, 52, 53 is the Nitras, 55 is the Neochu that we talked about, then 56 through 62 are the Ring. So the one we've missed is 54.
Does anything happen after 62 since it has this whole presentation with Titan, or is it just like
It
nothing?
does actually.
Yeah.
But it might be more prudent to talk about that when we're talking about turtles.
Okay, sure.
Sounds
good to me.
So for now, let's take a step back. Yeah, let's talk about 54. Take it away, Curtis.
All right. So 54 is the return of a. Okay. So the entire time that we've been on Grand Pulse, right? We've done a mission before where we fought a cactuar, right? And
Was that a mission, or we just bump into it?
maybe we
like-
just bumped into it. But the point is,
we triggered that they spawn now with that.
yeah,
one.
now they're just everywhere, and we run into them. We get a couple CP off of them or whatever, which at the time was really good CP, and now is a waste of time. When you see a cactuar, you're like, get out of here! I don't have time for you.
Yep.
But
Quick
if we
addendum
remember,
on that. Have you ever let them grow up?
I think we're getting ready to find out what happens if they
Well,
do.
that's when they get really, really big. But the regular cactuar enemies, if you engage with them, if you don't hit them at all, they do a dance. And they go from regular cactuar to giant cactuar, and then from giant cactuar they go to, I think it's like king cactuar or something like that.
Oh wow, I've never seen that.
And the longer that they go, the more moves they have, the more CP it gives you.
Oh,
so
no
like when I
shit.
was farming and I was just doing the chelds, I would do that little ring, like their little grove. I would have enough to summon to kill a toys, but while I was building up my CP again, I would sit in like send synergist and then med and just wait for it to dance into giant, because if you get it at giant, it does 20,000 CP with
no
the growth
shit.
egg. Yeah, so
Wow.
Nice.
Okay.
and it's fairly easy to take down, at least in the second stage. The third stage is a bit rough,
yeah.
but yeah.
Well, I haven't seen that. I'm gonna have
That's
to boot
super
it back
cool.
up and check it out.
Is that when they get the flowers on their head and stuff?
No, I don't remember if those ones also grow up.
And yeah, I noticed the one with the cute little flower.
I'll have to
on their
try
head.
that out later.
Yeah, so I'm genuinely not sure. I only heard like I had heard of these other cactuar variants existing, and I'd never seen them. And I recently asked someone like, "Where are those?" And it's like, "Oh, you just got to wait for them." And then
Yeah, I
I'm
had
like,
no
"Oh,
idea.
that's why I've never seen it. I go
Mrzwanzig's
fast."
like, I must always be going fast. I cannot wait for anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's also no category of speedrun where you ever fight regular cactuars anyway. You never need to.
Yeah, because there's
Right.
no bestiary achievement like 10.
There is, but you only need 100 enemies. Like you guys
that's
got
right,
that somewhere
yeah.
in chapter 10 or 11 or sometime, probably.
So yeah, there's cactuar, giant cactuar, and then cactuar prime.
That's
Right.
what it is.
Cactuar
I love
Prime.
that
Nice.
name.
From the end of Fallout 3. So yeah.
Yeah, like it's like their stats don't really change much except their chain resistance and I guess the CP that they
The
fall.
damage.
interesting.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go see
Cactuar
him. I would love to
Prime's
see
just, they spam 1,000 needles,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
like a lot.
Yeah, which is if it's only 1,000 though, even if they're doing it a lot, that's better than spamming 10,000 needles.
Yeah, imagine that. That would be
Yeah.
terrible.
Imagine if you were fighting something that could do that.
Yeah.
I guess the flowering cactuars are rare, but they have a rare drop of ribbon, which is cool.
Oh wow, yeah, I
I'm
don't
curious.
think I actually had a ribbon in this game yet.
But yeah, this mission is over by like I guess where we saw the behemoth and that giant like dog fighting each other near like the entrance to
Yeah, it's on like a little cliff, yeah. And then we
the
find Jumbo Cactuar near where we found the first one, right?
The mission is pretty cool. It's like I love how kind of noble they make the contrast, of course, of like making it's like the Tom Brady thing where like they make it seem like this big heavy thing with this just kind of a meme of a fight.
Yeah.
We 5 Lassie are the shepherds who see the caravan safe from harm. Though we act as one, it falls to me to fulfill our focus, for I am the leader. And what manner of leader would shirk most onerous of duties? I cannot abide such shame. The eastern tors are dominion of our mark, Afel Gigantoir. It is said to frequent rise within Ortois territory.
Turtle
For honor
Land.
the Falsi and my brothers. I will slay the spiny scourge and carve my own legend in its ruined husk.
Slam
So
poetry.
badass. Yeah. So yeah,
was here.
it gives it a lot of gravitas, right? And then like when we actually go find it, it just pops up behind.
It's the same place where we fought encountered.
Yeah,
it's like
the other
it's
one.
basically the sequel to the cutscene where we first saw
Yeah.
Cactuar with
And
Saz.
So the
Saz
jumbo
actually confuses
cactuar-
it for the one that he already saw. He's like,
Well,
"Oh, you again?"
Does he confuse it? Because because it pops up very comically and without a lot of fanfare, it just goes whoop, and he's like, "Oh, it's you again, isn't it?" And then the jumbo cactuar jumps in front of him and does like a little walk, and he goes, "Oh my god, it's that walk! You're the same one."
Oh, okay, yeah. So he grew up.
I know that trot. It is you, isn't it? Found yourself some fertilizer, did you?
I know that trot. It's you.
Same music as well of like the cool like Saz theme with like the upbeat and dancing.
Can't catch
and
a
stuff.
break or whatever.
Yeah, and he's just kind of jumping around and trying to catch him like very cartoony.
He like
and stuff.
throws all of his limbs at it, like he's gonna like grab onto its leg or something.
It's
But
really
it's still
good.
too fast.
Has
It's
like
still
that coach whistle sound effect in the background. That beep beep.
Yeah.
Also really
so good.
good.
It runs off like we think that it was going to end like that again. Like, oh yeah, that he just grew up and now he ran away again, like when he first met. But then he comes back and like startles us. It's like a jump scare,
Yep,
like
yep.
creeping up from the
He
cliff.
runs away one more time and then becomes Titan-sized, and then we have to fight him as the last Titan trial.
Giga Cactuar.
It's great too because the way that they changed up like the voice acting for the Cactuar is very, very funny. It's like very deep and very like echoey and stuff. Like
Yeah, but it's still just the boing sounds, but just like lower
They're just
pitched.
lower.
yeah, it's really, really
Brrr,
cute.
brrr.
I think we talked about this when we were talking about Cactuars, proper. But they look like dolls almost. Like they
It still looks like it's like made like a plushie or something.
It's a kind of silky, kind of velour, kind of texture
Yeah.
to it. It looks like it was actually pretty
made
soft,
of pleather,
like upholstered.
yeah. I just remember my fiance saw that Cactuar and she's like, I don't know why and I can't explain it, but he makes me feel very uneasy.
Well, me too.
This mission is also available way early too. Like we can do this mission the first time we're going through Pulse. And so I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, let's do it. Gigantor. I'm all leveled up. I'm like maxed out on Crystarium. I'm gonna fuck this guy up. And I went over there and he just immediately killed everyone just in like
it's just
5
like-
seconds. And I was like, oh,
First
okay.
attack, 10,000 needles. What's your
Yeah,
HP
at that time you
point?
have like 800 HP or some shit. You're like, oh,
His HP is 7-1, so like 1.1 million.
Yeah.
yeah.
Strength 10,000. Wild.
He's a big chunky boy.
But his ability, of course, is 10,000 needles.
I did not fight this guy again and beat this guy. So somebody else take it from me.
Yeah, I actually didn't. I did fight him again, and it was still. I had just cracked the 10,000 HP mark with like 2 of my characters, and I think Vanille still didn't have that, so she would get one shot by it still. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to come back later after level grinding. So I did do a lot of level grinding, but and I am well over 10,000 now, but I have not gone back yet to try and fight him, so I can't really speak on any strats for it.
I just watched on YouTube somebody did the random instant chain technique, and it seems to work on him. So you get Saz out and just cold blood him and get a
It
chance
does.
to-
That's definitely that's the cheese strat for this fight. Random instant chain. For some reason, the target time for this fight is extremely low for how tough of a fight it is. So for years and until I got into speedrunning, I was convinced that RIC was the only way to 5-star this fight.
Hitting us with the lingo.
But it is possible otherwise. It's just very
I was
hard.
gonna say, have you learned otherwise?
But I guess I'm gonna have to talk about this because none of you have done the fight.
No, that's why you all are here today.
We brought back up. We paradigm shift out of podcast into listener.
It looks like he's susceptible to days, so at least
Yes.
there's,
Battle party changed. It's just Mrzwanzig and Ninnyz.
All right. Yeah. Now, Days is one of the options that you've got against him. But the thing with Days is it functions like sleep in other games, in that whenever you hit a Days target, they take double damage on that hit, but then immediately wake up. So you can't rely on that constantly. His only attack is 10,000 needles. He never does anything else. So much like Atticus, you definitely want to have a sentinel pretty much the whole time, because in addition to 10,000 damage, it also has a chance of inflicting pain and or fog, which are the abilities that prevent you from doing physical or magical abilities. Yep. So not only is he doing hella damage, he also can just stop you from doing stuff. So yeah, having a permanent sentinel is definitely advisable. The problem is that Gigantor cheats. He literally cheats. So he has a pattern of, I think it's 11 attacks, and as he does these attacks, he gets progressively faster and does them closer and closer together.
Oh my god.
And then he slows down again. Yeah. So, and on some of these hits, it's like always the same ones, I think, in the chain. He will, on certain attacks, always target the leader, even if he's provoked on a different character.
Oh, really?
It's blatant cheating by the game. So essentially, the strategy is just lead with your sentinel.
I see. Interesting.
goodness.
Do any of the damage prevention charms help, or does like shell help, or is it a flat 10,000 no matter what? Like if I stack like resist damage like 25% on him, or on like snow or something.
I believe the only things that actually work to reduce the damage is being in a sentinel and like guarding. Although I'm not 100% sure if I'm fully honest.
I would imagine, and I don't know how, it would probably be a nightmare to actually like test this, but there is that accessory that has like random chance for complete damage negation. I'm wondering
the
that
20-sided die.
Yeah. So maybe like the 20-sided die could potentially help out in this case,
so
but
unreliable.
yeah, it's not even really worth like in a theoretical sense. I think that would work, but that is like,
Sure.
So do you think like a character that has evade, and then just like hoping that will straight up just like completely dodge the attacks?
Okay, I'm actually looking it up here. It is it says on the Final Fantasy fandom, so if they're wrong, at them, don't at me. But it says
Get 'em.
Sentinels can mitigate the damage. I don't know if that. I think mitigate probably just means like take the brunt of it. But it does say it is possible to reduce the 10,000 needles to do 0 damage, but it requires the Ethereal Mantle passive ability, which nullifies all physical damage.
Yeah, so to get Ethereal Mantle, you need 4 Kaiser Knuckles, I think, is the only way to synthesize that ability. And that is like the strongest strength boosting accessory. There's an equivalent one for magic as well, which if you have that one, then congrats, double Raktavisha is easy.
It's easy, no problem.
Because they only use magic. But you need a dark matter to synthesize one of those.
Which I don't even think I've seen a dark matter yet, but I have seen it mentioned in certain things of like maybe what's it called? I always say disassembling, but it's not dismantling.
No, you can't dismantle into them. The only way to get them is either buying them for, I think it's 800,000. No, Trapezohedron is 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right.
And those are specifically for the ultimate weapons, right?
Yes.
Probably like Titan poop or something.
When he's done eating adamantoids, he just poops one little dark matter.
And the other way to get them is from
Titan's just like Nibbler from fucking Futurama.
And then the other way to get them is from certain turtles that we'll talk about later.
Okay. Speaking of which, if we're done with Jumbo Cactuar, which I think
One more thing.
One more thing. You're gonna Columbo me. All right.
Another
There was-
one.
So we just talked about the Cactuar Prime, right?
Mhm.
Which is the final version of Cactuar after it's done the dance. Did you know that there's actually a Gigantuar Prime in the game data?
Oh yeah.
This was a dummied thing. Going back to what Alex has talked about quite a bit, the seventh arc, there was actually plans for there to be a prime version of this enemy that would supposedly appear in the seventh arc, but did not make it into the game. So,
Hooray. It's
yeah,
not
thank
there.
God, dude. There's also the Roctavisia Prime as well, which would have been there, like the Atticus Prime.
It's just like people sitting
No,
around
dude.
at Square Enix are like, how do we make this mission even harder? I got it. 3 fucking Roctavisias.
Yeah, you're so smart.
All right. I think we have a pretty solid idea of what we want to do for the last part of this final episode. So I tell you what, let's take a break. And then when we come back, let's talk about Turtles and the final mission of the game.
And Shredder's Revenge.
And Shredder's
Turtles
Revenge.
and Time. And Turtles
And also
in
some
Time.
Analects. I read the Analects and I want to talk a little bit
They're
about
pretty
those
cool,
at the very
yeah.
end.
Tonight, we dine on turtle soup.
It's Turtles all the way down.
Bury my shell at Wounded Knee.
All right. See you in a minute. So before there was 64, there was 63.
Oh, I thought you were gonna be Super Nintendo, going for like the classic Nintendo joke.
I was thinking about it and I couldn't bring it together. I just couldn't make it happen in my head.
We have made it to the Big Apple. It is 3 a.m. and it's pizza time, baby. We're killing some turtles.
Killing some turtles. That's right.
Call us Bebop and Rocksteady because these turtles gotta fucking die, dude.
I think the weird thing about 63 and 64, I mean, not weird, I actually appreciate it, but the missions are not found in the steppe, right? Like this one's in Sulia Springs, which is an interesting place for it to be, I feel like.
Oh yeah, this is the dead one we saw like on our way out of the springs, I think.
Yeah.
I think thematically it makes sense because when we read the actual like note about it, it says, "I've been given the focus of eliminating a stampeding adamantoids in the eastern tors of the Arclight Steppe. It seems someone engaged the beast by attacking its young, and the fal'Cie wish it dead. I understand the danger it poses, but is violence the only solution? I would be enraged if someone attacked my child. It just seems so wrong." I feel like the subtext of that is this person was like, I'm not going to do what the fal'Cie tell me to. I'm just going to go fuck off in the Sulia Springs. I'm going to let this thing live.
Eaten by
Again, we've
frogs.
talked about the cycle of violence ending in past missions and everything. And that is not how it works because we have to go and kill a lot of these gentle giants that this person who is a much better person than we are is like, I cannot do that.
Yeah.
This gentle creature.
So is the implication with someone attacking its child that's related to the other mission 33?
I think so. I would assume
be?
so.
Some fal'Cie just hates these things.
Yeah. Yeah, the fal'Cie are dicks.
The Haka, you asshole.
Yeah.
They want to build a highway through that valley of turtles, and like they're like, we can't get them out.
It might even not even.
There's a whole movie about it.
It might not be that they even hate them. It could just be Titan being a dick, being like, "Yo, these things are pretty strong. Let's see if there's anything stronger. I'm just gonna force people to fucking kill these things."
Yeah,
He
just
eats
pluck
them,
somebody
though.
out of the village. You kill that. But
Yeah, but
why?
he's
I
always
do like
making people fight one another.
There is like a limited amount of text in the game about the adamantoids, but I do like that every bit of text we get about them and their place in the society of Pulse, at least as it relates to humans, is that like humans are fine with these guys. They don't seem to like mess with people that much.
They also seem like Pulse people have tamed them because there are like chains and stuff on them.
Yeah,
So
the
are-
toys have the chains.
Were they chains out of imprisoning, or like I guess
well, yeah, they're like
every like tame elephant is not is imprisoned to some degree.
Yeah, that's the thing. It feels like they're like tamed, or if you want to put it in prison, but they at least have enough respect for them that they're like, no, I would rather die than hurt fucking adamantoids. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm just going to
it's kind of
become
weird.
a monster.
I thought it was like
one.
an agricultural thing. Like, obviously, you don't want to pull it with your legs, like pulling a plow or something like that. But like, the long guis and stuff like that, they're all like ornately like decorated.
Yeah.
Shielding and have luggage and stuff on them.
It seems like there's respect in the culture of Pulse for these creatures, which I think is very interesting.
A respect that we do not have, because they are they're fucking pinatas filled with Christogen points. You just go up to them and you wail on them until you get all the gil and all the CP that you could ever want.
Yo, I can't wait to talk about like Mio Bookie got to go break his legs to get that CP.
Yep. So this is a mission where we just have to go back to that turtle town that we talked about before, where there's the two big boys that are blocking the two entrances into there. One of those fights has like the extra dog enemies.
We can scuttle by them, no problem.
Yeah, we just run back there and we can fight them. And then do you guys want to talk about this fight? Because there's quite a few strategies, I think, for this, right?
Yeah, there's several ways you can deal with these guys. It somewhat mildly interesting to point out, I guess, is that there's two types of these big turtles. There's the adamantois and there's the adamantortoise, which is not technically the same enemy, but they're very similar and they're more or less equally hard. Adamantois has slightly more HP, I think, and a higher stagger point, but in terms of their attacks, they're mostly the same. The adamantois, I think, also have tusks, which the adamantortoise don't.
Interesting.
They're very slightly different. The one we're fighting for this mission is an adamantortoise, but yeah.
I don't think I ever actually even recognized the difference between the two. I was just on a turtle killing frenzy and I just saw red, so.
The adamantois has the big tusks. And I guess they have the legs too. You can target their legs.
Yeah. The adamantortoise is the same in that.
So the easy strat is summon. It breaks both their legs immediately and they collapse. And then you can use one or two different strats. The common one is just like death and pray. That one is okay. Death always has a low chance of proccing, right? But what I did is I would start off summon and I would be in control of Saz. So I would, while I'm building up like the gestalt and stuff like that for like the summon, I would like buff him and then like just like build up the chain as best as I could, and then let the summon end up, like just keep it going. That way I maintain the chain duration. And then when everybody comes back, be in like a rab sav paradigm, so that way I'm getting at least deep protect on it. And then as soon as deep protect is on it and it's staggered, it's just blitz time, baby.
Okay, blitz.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And usually that kills.
How long would you say a fight like that would take?
With the TP, I could usually end it in one stagger, so about a minute and a half.
Okay,
maybe
nice.
2 minutes. The optimal way to do it, where you don't have to wait for the TP, is you need the speedrun uses Fang to get Bravara and Protectra on herself. It starts, I think, with like two synergists, and then you just basically Bravara and like increase your defense and attack, and then you do try disaster, stagger one leg, stagger the other leg, and then just high wind both legs, and it breaks it, and then you just like damage the main body.
Yeah, and the reason you want to use high wind specifically is because the legs have their HP is not that high, but they have very high damage resistance, which high wind ignores.
Yeah, so I think they have like, if I remember correctly, it's something like 350,000 in each of the legs, I think.
But you need at least Bravara to boost it, because like you said, I think in the last episode, you were looking at like the synergies and like, what's raw? What's a raw spell? So it's just half the duration, double the effect.
Okay,
I see. Okay. So what about y'all were talking earlier about the end of mission 62 causing something to happen. What's the deal with that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up once we finish talking about this enemy specifically.
Yeah, I would say I think it makes sense. I didn't know about this until we just like took that break actually, but this is a very interesting thing. So let's wrap up on the tortoise a little bit, and then talk.
I was
about
gonna say I don't know what else to say about the tortoise.
Oh yeah, no, I have a
he
couple
stomp
things
and kill you.
Yeah, that's a big thing where he'll stomp and if you don't have high enough resistance or high enough HP, he can just kind of one shot you. So my strategy for it when I was like lower leveled, because this kind of became my gil farm as well as my Christogen point farm, was have Vanille as the head of my party, have two synergists, or two saboteurs, I mean, and with Vanille, try and stick him with like D-Protect or D-Shell while he's standing up. I could take one hit with the stomp, and then as soon as I was like in like the red of almost dying, I would immediately summon and break his legs, and then I would spend that entire time with Vanille dumping whichever resistance, like whichever debuffs that I could get on him, which was D-Shell, D-Protect, and Imperil. And then I would just spam death the whole time. I would usually try and have Hope use haste before getting into that so I could get a couple more off. Some of these fights ended in as quickly as 22 seconds. Others did not. The downside of this is that becomes a TP method. You need to have TP. I don't really have the equipment to get 3 TP back at the end of like a fight like this, so it would require going and fighting a couple other things. You can go and fight some of the childs or the Kalits, however we pronounced it. But that it kind of became a thing where it's like, oh my god, there's so many steps just to get to being able to fight this thing so you can cheese it, which like makes sense, but kind of felt pretty bad. Another thing, I used all my ether sols when I was going through this, and I was like, that's fine, I can buy those. Nope. You cannot buy them, but you can dismantle a doctor's code with it, and I think at this point in the game, you're not really going to be throwing potions anytime. So doctor's code is pretty worthless. So I just leveled up all of the I had like 3 doctor's codes, I think. I leveled them up. It takes like 200 experience to level them up to starred one, and then when you dismantle it, you get a lot of souls. You get ether soul, a couple other items, and you also get an elixir. So now I have like 3 or 4 elixirs, which is pretty sick.
Yeah, there's actually only 4 elixirs that you can get in the entire game, and 3 of them are from dismantling Doctor's Codes. And then one is in a chest in Chapter 13 that you guys mentioned.
Yeah, that is 4 elixirs that are going to remain on my save file forever, because I will never actually... If I have to
JRPG player.
If I have to use it in a fight, I'm probably too far gone. I remember the one time I did use it in, I think, Atticus. I was like, okay, I don't have TP for Renew. Vanille's down. I gotta throw the elixir. I threw the elixir, and it was like, it doesn't apply to downed characters, and I was just like, well, at least I get that elixir back, because I am not gonna beat this fight.
So, I suppose, you were implying, Mrzwanzig, that when we complete this ring of Seath Stones, something changes in the overworld, I think, right?
Yeah. So once you complete all of missions 56 through 62, there's no fanfare announcing that this happens, but all of a sudden, all the adamantoises and adamantortoises on the steppe are now Longui, and all of the adamanchelids are now a different enemy called Xiao Longui. And these are like super boss, like on the same tier of the final mission, essentially, of difficulty.
So real quick corrections, Mrzwanzig. I'm gonna switch the camera back at you real quick and correct you. You said all of them are replaced. It is actually only half. It is all of the adamantortoise and only half of the adamantoise.
Yo, get him. Got him.
So that is like 1/4. Mrzwanzig
nail him to the wall
exactly,
in this gotcha media.
Mrzwanzig's on the chalkboard that I have over here. He's got like 1,000,000 ticks. I'm going to put one next to mine finally. One for me, baby. No, but that's just a small thing.
But to compare, the adamantoise has like 5.3 million HP, and the Longui has
16 million, 15.
Yeah, 16 million.
Yeah.
Oh god.
So another
and they're
kind
no
of
longer susceptible to death, right?
No longer, I cannot use my strat on them. So I'm glad that I did not replace them, because if I did and then I had to like no longer have that, and using this TP method would have been useless, and I would have to do it the honorable way, which I don't feel like doing ever. But an important distinction too. So I talked about how this kind of became my main method for not just farming experience, but also gil. There's a common drop that you can get from an adamant tortoise that's about like 25% is the platinum ingot. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. It's like 25%. That sells for 150,000 gil, I think. So it's good. If you're trying to level up your weapons, which I was trying to do, I was trying to get an extra ATB bar for lightning to try and make the Atticus fight a little more manageable. I was trying to get the Trapezohedron. I was trying to get that, which requires, I think, 2 million gil. We talked about, right?
Yeah, don't buy those.
So I was trying to get 2 million gil, and then I sold the platinum ingot, and I was like, oh my god, this sucks, this is awful. And I was actually, we were talking in like the podcast planning Discord, I was ready to fucking quit. I was like, okay, I get it, I don't have the time to invest in this, I'm not gonna just have all this. And like literally the next adamantoise I fought, I did the death thing. It took like 22 seconds or something. And I got the rare drop, which is a 1% drop of the trapezohedron. And I was just like, cool, Lightning's got her full ATB now. And this game just pulled me back in. It heard me saying I was going to quit, and it pulled me right back in.
The house always wins.
Just to point out about rare drops, they're actually 5 times as likely if you get 5 stars. So it's 5%.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice. Well, that's interesting you mentioned that, because I'm looking here, and the rare drop for the Longwy, the platinum ingot is still the same at 25%. The rare drop is the same item, but 5%. So
yeah, so 25 with 5 stars.
Yeah, so with collectors' catalogs and stuff, you can kind of make it more likely that you get the rare drop. A lot of times you won't really get anything, but it's good. It's probably the best way that you're ever going to get Christogen points at this point. So while you're running past, if you have the TP for it, you're like, I'll just use death really quick, get this free pinata worth of CP, and then just move on.
The other thing that you can get that I've been using in my builds whenever I'm running around to get everything is you get the connoisseur catalog, which you upgrade from the collector catalog. I don't know how much it increases.
It's actually only so the collector catalog increases the common drop rate by 50%, which is really good for getting those platinum ingots. The connoisseur catalog increases the rare drop rate, but only by 10%. So it's like, if you're really wanting
do those stack if I have a collector and a connoisseur on? Does it like
then they both work separately? Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh, so nice. So you could presumably get 2 drops then?
No, you can only get 1. It will check for the rare one first, and then if you don't get that, it'll give you the common.
Oh, well, that's nice of it. That is not how things work in Dark Souls, where we have to deal with this as well, because there's the Black Knight who can drop the Black Knight shield. They can drop nothing, or they can drop the weapon that you want. So, like, it's really lucky in a speedrun to get the shield, because that's a less drop rate, and you don't want that. You don't want to get the shield, because you get a rare drop, but it's still not viable for the leaderboards.
In all the times that I've played Dark Souls, I've only ever gotten the Channeler Trident once, and I always wanted to do a run with the Channeler Trident.
Just break it immediately when you start doing the Fortnite dance that it lets you do.
What is more difficult, the Longwy or the Xiaolongwy?
It's a good question. The Longwy has much more HP, and it has the whole thing where you need to take out the legs, but the Xiaolongwy is honestly might be more dangerous. The Longwy is probably more cheesable, because you can still do the summon to knock out his legs, and then he's just kind of helpless for 90 seconds. You can poison him, so the cheesiest way to take him out would be like summon, poison him, just stall out in Gestalt mode for a while, take out most of his HP with poison damage, then let him get up, use an elixir, summon again, and repeat.
FF10 strats.
That would be the cheesiest way to do it. You can't really do much cheese on Xiaolongwy. Longwy's probably more dangerous while you're actually fighting him, but you can more easily stop him from doing things once you take out the legs.
So to prepare for like a Longwy Xiaolongwy fight, you obviously want to have the highest level Earth Ring, right?
Yeah, because that reduces the damage from their stomps.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And also from Quake, which they can cast. This all applies to the regular toys as well. And then these guys also just have Ultima as a regular ability that they just cast.
Would you also recommend, instead of like amping up your offense, just be pure defense? So like reduce magical attack, reduce physical attack, reduce earth attack, and then like have the Verst Bangle for like maximum HP? Or would you kind of like build a balance?
Not necessarily. I mean, look, I'm used to fighting these guys only in a platinum trophy run, and by the point where we start doing it, we're already pretty close to maxed out on Crystarium. Well, less so in the modern route, I guess, because now we actually use Xiaolongui more for CP farming, because they're actually the best CP per hour in the game.
Oh, interesting.
Really?
Farming.
How much do they give?
I think with a growth egg, you get 120k a pop.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
looking
what
at
it
the
looks
page
like.
right now, and that's
60,000 base.
Yep.
Yeah, which is 20 less than the Adamant toys with the growth egg.
Yeah, right.
That's nuts. It also, its rare drop is dark matter, which I was like, wow, that's really cool. We were just talking about that. That's a hard to get item.
Yeah, again, in the platinum trophy run, you need 5 of those to get all the equipment.
Jeez, yeah. That sells, you to buy it, that's like 800,000, but to sell it, you can get a cool 9,000 gil for it. How's that for fucking markup? Disaster capitalists.
So is that the turtles? Are we good with turtles now?
While we're still on the turtles, there was a dummied enemy in this game that looks scary as fuck. It still has the image in the data log.
Oh wow!
It's called the Wurtzitois.
Oh, Jesus.
This is all speculation, but because of just how it looks, it only has like 1.6 million. But just by the look of it, because it has that Godzilla thing where it looks like it has just a energy like glowing and lurking in its throat. Maybe it just had an overpowered like magic
Or it could be crystals.
elemental attack or something. Or it could be crystals.
Kind of looks like the crystal lizards from Dark Souls.
It's just gonna like vomit Lassie at you.
Vomit Seath at you.
It just starts spitting out like Atticuses.
I believe that's Attici.
But it looks radioactive, like something from like Fallout, because it's just very sickly and green. I'm curious if this would have been on the steppe or maybe a part of the 7th arc again, just as like a special enemy. Because we saw Grand Pulse's quote unquote attack with some tortoises ravaging Eden.
Yeah.
But it's cool that there's like an image of it.
So the final mission, the one it's all come down to. This is the main event. Ring ding ding, here it comes.
Where is this stone?
Where is this stone? It's in Erba.
I think it's in Erba, right?
Yeah, it's actually right where you fought Bartandalus.
It's on the Rusty Bridge, right?
Which is a very cool place for the final mission stone to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, essentially what it does.
Is this the one that gave us like the kind of weird lore before we shot off?
Yeah, it's that stone, or at least in the same location. Wow. Yeah,
it's the one that Vanille read off of.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing this is the final of the Undying, right?
The Bane Lord of the Undying, in fact, as it says in the description.
The Doom Herald.
Yep.
This is Vercingetorix.
Yeah, Vercingetorix, which, by the way...
or Cringeatorix, if you ask me.
Oh, just casually rolls off the tongue so nicely.
There's a theme with all of these Undying as well, where they're all named after... enemies of ancient Rome.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Vercingetorix specifically being like the leader of the Gauls who was defeated by Caesar or whatever.
Nice. So you have to stab him in the back then to use the weakness of his greatest foe against him.
So when you take this mission, the description is Vercingetorix, Bane Lord of the Undying, lives on. But how? I smote the fiend's ruin so long ago it seems an eternity. Yet it was my focus then, as it is now, and at his end I turned to Crystal. Did some unearthly power quicken his lifeless corpse again, even as I dreamt? No matter, I know where he lurks, in the Pedraean Archaeopolis, whose doom he did herald. There do I go to bury the beast as many times as I must. It's like, ooh.
Oh, is this where he fought the first?
It's where he fought the first Undying.
Yeah.
Yes.
who's also a winged creature, I believe. Yeah, he did this little thing and like there was this weird blue cocoon looking thing that was there. I was like, what's that all about? And I totally forgot about it.
Yeah, well, that's about to pay off.
Yeah, holy shit! Wow,
I totally forgot what that was.
Yeah, and it seems intentional as well that they placed the mission stone all the way at the end of Erba. So if you were to run all the way from the stone to the mission, which don't do that, just warp. But if you did that, you would be essentially crossing all of Poles.
Yeah,
like the longest possible way they could make you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
which is pretty good thematic wise. You know, like the last run across.
But nobody's gonna do that.
Don't do that. No, warp.
But when we get to the Pidraean ruins, if we go up to that cocoon, he like bursts forth from it. There's like a small cutscene right before the fight starts.
It's this glowing blue kind of orb thing.
Yeah, and this boy got HP for days.
Yeah, slightly less than the Longui, I believe, 15 point something million.
Yep.
Damn.
Yeah,
that's
boy.
So much, dude. I was shitting myself at Atticus. It was 9.1, I think. I was shitting myself at the Juggernaut when it was 1 million.
I gotta look up how much HP Yasmat had from fucking
50.
FF12.
50 million.
50? All right, he's still a champion.
I think he will be for a long time.
Okay.
So what is the maximum damage that you can do with the break damage limits? Is that just like slightly under 1 million?
Yeah, it is.
Because I know
I didn't mention it because we didn't talk about speedrun strategies for it, but the Longui strategy that we do in Platinum is actually having Vanille consistently hit 6 9s with her death spell, because death works interestingly in that it actually has it's immune to the instant death effect, but it still has quite a high damage multiplier. Plus, it is the only one of the full ATB skills that can be enhanced with an element. So you can like cast and fire on Vanille.
Oh, really?
Imperil the turtle, and then it'll do twice as much. And also, unlike High Wind or Snow's, which is Sovereign Fist, it doesn't clear the chain gauge. So you can repeatedly spam it during stagger.
Cool.
Yeah,
and then also like switch Vanille into Commando as it's casting to get the Commando bonus as well. And with all those bonuses, you can actually hit 6 9s with Vanille, and you just spam that at him once he's down.
That's amazing.
Cool. So the Longui idea is to stagger it and then just use death, but calm buffer it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of shifting. It is
a lot of shifting. And then, like, even with that, you also poison him to do like ancillary damage. It's actually quite tough to one stagger him, even with that.
It's so funny to think about this, because I don't know if you guys have seen like super overpowered Elden Ring builds where people are like one-shotting and stuff. There's so many buffs that like stack on top of each other in that game. Like you have a weapon that can do a buff, you have spells that can do a buff, you have like a potion that can do a buff. So you see people getting ready to do a one-shot of like a very hard boss, and they'll just run in and do like this little dance where they like drink their potion and they're like spinning around. Then they like hold their sword into the air and it like glows, and like they do all this other stuff, and they like buff their weapon and stuff. And it takes like a minute worth of just having buffs, so then you can do one shot. And that's kind of what like this almost feels like, where you like do all this setup work and then it's just like, oh, it just did 1 million damage. It was funny too, because when I was trying to do like the gil farming, I was trying to think in my head, okay, Vanille has 5 ATB bars and it's staggered, and she's doing, with death, she's doing like, 5 9s. Is that actually like the strongest, or could she be doing a spell differently that would, like, the math wise with her, like, would it be faster to do it rather than just using 1 bar of ATB to do 999? Or would it be like, oh, if I'm using fire and it's doing like 30 each, that's 30 times 5. Like it's funny how this game like has this weird math to it where you're like, okay, but is this the best strat?
Yeah.
So Versi.
Yeah, so Versi.
Yeah.
I am reading here. He has a lot of mechanics.
He does.
Where, like, as he takes damage, he sprouts more wings, which is very interesting.
Yeah, he starts out with 2 wings and he goes all the way up to 8.
And it looks like as he sprouts those, he gets more, attacks? He gets more additions to his recovery skills Also, he has impenetrable aura. I hate that. Any enemy that has that,
Yeah, that's
out of
bullshit.
here with that shit.
No aura should be impenetrable.
So Versi as a fight is the pace of the fight is very much controlled by what he's doing, because he alternates between attacking for a little while and then sitting in impenetrable aura where you can't do anything to him. Like you can't even effectively chain him at all during that. It's not like with Raktavisha where with impenetrable aura you just hit him until he's staggered or whatever. No, essentially that is your cue to just heal and buff up yourself, because that's what he's going to be doing during that as well. He heals himself a bit, but like not enough that it should outdamage you. And he can cast some buffs on himself, and it'll be more buffs the later in the fight you are. And also the later you get, the longer he will stay out of impenetrable aura. So at the start he'll only do 6 attacks, and then he'll impenetrable aura, and then 6 attacks, etc. And in the second phase he'll do 9 attacks, I think, something like that. And it keeps increasing, and he keeps getting stronger attacks as well.
Jeez.
So this his best attack is Wicked Whirl, right?
Yep. He will do that from his 3rd phase onward out of 4 phases.
And that looks fucking frustrating. That,
Yeah.
14
that's
hits.
essentially like you're meant to go into this with like maxed or near maxed your entire Crystarium, right?
This is the penance, essentially.
Yeah, kinda,
Yeah.
And so when you see Wicked World, that's essentially your cue to switch to 3 Sentinels. Like you just gotta have a paradigm that is just for when he uses Wicked World, where you just have 3 Sentinels, because otherwise you're just gonna fucking die.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's so rough. That's so rough. And hopefully you have enough HP as he's going on into it that you can sit in Sentinel and be all right, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, again, in all mission speedruns, we're doing this with like 10,000 HP. We literally just can't survive it. It's actually a really bad fight in that run, because the only way we can properly deal with it is poison him, which we'll get to that in a second. You can poison him, and that's honestly the best thing about this fight. But in all missions, all we do is like poison, summon, stalling Gestalt for a while we can't get hit. And then when that's done, he'll go into his next phase. We use an elixir and repeat that, and we use all of our elixirs on that fight alone.
Oh, wow.
That's a good use for him, honestly.
Because there's just no way to fight him straight up at those stats. You can't do it.
Also, speaking of the turtles, the Sen paradigm is called Tortoise.
Yep.
That's sen. I thought you said sin.
No.
Which is rapid growth.
So I'm looking here on the guide from the fandom. It says that using that method, but going for a equipment boost ability called Gestalt Boost. What is that, and how does that help?
Good question. I don't know. Legitimately, I don't know what that ability is. I didn't know it existed. Is that a synthesized ability?
Yes. So apparently it's the Speed Sash, Energy Sash, Champion's Badge, and Survivalist catalog.
Weird.
Don't those synthesize random instant chain?
It makes it easier to charge TP and Gestalt gauges.
Huh.
So they fill up
Maybe
faster.
is it so that way you go in there with 5, you summon, and then you just try to like survive and then gain another 3rd.
Well, I think you don't gain until the battle's over, right?
I feel like, yeah.
No.
I feel like
As you do things in the fight, you gain a small amount of TP.
there are
Is that
some things that you can do with the TP.
Okay.
I haven't seen like that level of synergist with it, but or synergy with it, I guess I should say, since synergist is its own thing. But like attacking or killing enemies will restore a little bit of TP gauge. So like Curtis, I think you may have even mentioned this in maybe either like this or a separate strat where you just run into a fight with a bunch of enemies, cast Ruinga and kill them all, and then from like your bonus you get something. I'm wondering if it's something similar where it's like you can attack or do certain things to raise during the fight. That would be really interesting.
I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, I'm genuinely not sure. I'm not aware of this.
Does his defense go up the less HP he has?
I don't think his enemies don't really have an inherent defense strat other than I guess damage resistances they can have.
I see.
But he does start casting protect on himself.
Okay. What do we get for? We get the gold watch, right? For beating him.
Nice, dude. Get that Rolex.
The best way to deal with this, like if you're doing the fight like properly, is whenever he comes out of impenetrable aura, switch to 3 saboteurs and prioritize getting poison on him and slow. Poison so that, you know, you can do damage to him, and slow so that he spends longer before he goes into impenetrable aura again, because you're going to spend some time to get these debuffs even on, and then, you know, he's going to lose them again as soon as he turtles up again.
I see.
This might actually, I think the Gestalt boost, the passive ability that we were talking about, it looks like, from what I can see here, it's a dual thing. It's not just TP, and it's also Gestalt. So that's probably more so to get your Gestalt up faster than you normally would. I don't know how that would really necessarily help in this battle. Like, obviously, using a summon seems pretty necessary, but it's interesting. Maybe that gives you a longer duration of Gestalt time with your Eidolon, so you can idle out a little longer.
Yeah, that's
with the poison
what I
strat.
think it probably is. It might give you more Gestalt points or something.
Yeah,
So we don't have to chain as much.
So that way you can idle a little longer. You might, in that respect, maybe you would have to use 3 elixirs versus 4. Because I think it's also talking about it in the sense of poison. So, new strats every day, you know?
Yeah, I mean, either way, you're going to want to poison this guy if you can.
I like his wings. I'm looking at them. They remind me of the stained glass windows in the fight with Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time.
I can see that.
Not quite the same color, but similar thing. I'll send it to you guys.
This is actually one fight where I would say your party that you've been running with, Carl, is probably the optimal party, actually.
Yes.
Because they're all quite solid at Saboteur. Once you also like level that for Lightning, she gets all the important stuff.
Another interesting thing, as I was getting closer and closer to maxing out my entire parties, not just the one that I was like using, all of their what's it called? The Crystarium. Jesus Christ. Brain fart.
Too much 13.
Too much 13. But there's certain abilities that, and we probably mentioned this, but I'm like seeing it firsthand. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Certain abilities are available to different party members in different roles. So like, I forget what role it is. I think it might be Ravager or something for Lightning, where she gets Stopka. And if for like Snow, he gets Stopka in a different one. Or I think it's Medic for Lightning.
Yeah, Stopka is actually a technique. So it's not limited to that role. It's just that's where they unlock it.
I see. So does that take TP then?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, then it's useless. Never mind. I retract my...
Stopka is pretty useless, actually.
Yeah, because like, it acts a lot like Daze, basically.
Yeah, TP is so precious at this point.
Yeah, because it just stops an enemy action, but like it lasts literally almost just like an interrupt.
It empties out all their ATB. There's been niche discoveries of using that to do some wacky stuff, but like... It's hard to implement that, especially casually, because you can't see their ATBs.
Yeah.
But like even us speedrunners, I thought for years that it was like completely useless ability. But
that's what's interesting about
stuff with it.
That's what's interesting about all these mechanics that we're looking at. It's like literally stuff like this where like there could be a very small weird thing that someone hasn't thought of because it takes such a specific combination of items. Like I would never think of like using the survivalist catalog in like a battle against like a super boss or something just to get like a boost of something. Like it's so fascinating that there's like, or these things I would never think of switching into Sentinel while using Cold Blood to get like a crazy damage increase.
But yeah, that's first, see, and then you get the gold watch, which makes it easier to get 5 stars on things. Nice of them to wait until the final mission.
Well, I guess if you're going for that.
Yeah, it's like essentially telling you, like, now you can go back and get 5 stars on all the missions. Yeah.
I would argue that that's probably the best possible kind of loot that it could give you, is making a challenge thing a little easier, because it's not like... I think the drop for the Adamantoise fight, or the Adamantortoise that we have to fight, is the Genji glove, which is like really good, but it's also like, oh well, this would have helped me. Like I just kind of made it right there because I was like, I need the Genji glove, I need Gil to upgrade my weapon, and I need to level up. So I'm just gonna go right for this mission. But that mission being 63, you're like, okay, I just killed all of
Yeah,
the difficult things. Like that's going to probably be helpful against the final, super boss. But there's so many things in this where like putting the growth egg in where it is. After
so
the
late.
Titan trials, you're like, are you fucking serious?
And and again, I would say the Nyochu with the Pikachu's there from the start, like mission 55. I would say after 62 and 64, that's probably the hardest mission. Like it's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, to actually.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
So, if you're fighting that straight up, I mean,
Yeah.
So the four toughest fights in this game is Atticus, VC, or the double Roctavisia, and then
Proud Claude, right?
Well, that's more the speed run.
Yeah.
We'll probably
I'm sorry.
touch on
Did you
that
say
really quick
PC?
later.
Did you say PC?
No, I thought it was VC.
VC.
He meant
Okay.
Vercingetorix, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
I was just
and
making
then
sure.
The Nyochu.
Avicii, who made levels.
I might actually say Gigantor over Atticus, but
Really? Probably, yeah, because it's less manageable.
You're all forgetting the hardest one of all of them. And that is that one fucking Sahagin fight.
Oh, Sahagin.
That fucking group of Sahagin and other one.
and I mean, there's also Longui and Xiaolongui, but
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I did want to take a quick second to just touch on some of the analects. We don't need to go through all of them, but there are a couple that I thought were interesting. One of them is Analect 6 that we get that gives us the eventual fate of the people on Pulse and why there's no one there anymore, which is over time, eventually the Pulsian people fought over this Fal'Cie, Lassie, Cocoon thing and killed themselves eventually. They turned their swords on
We
each
didn't talk
other.
about Versi's death animation.
That one-
right? The whole little cutscene. after
Oh,
that.
and there is a cutscene after Versi gets killed where lightning shatters him with her sword, and it's sick as fuck.
Yeah, he freaks out, turns the crystal back where his cocoon was, and she just jumps up and smashes him.
That's true.
The end.
Nice. The end. The cycle of violence is ended.
Yeah,
And then the real credits roll.
yeah.
This time it's playing the Gerard Way song from the end of Advent Children instead of.
But yeah, it you also get a little bit in the in Analect 6 about how as the Fal'Cie continued to make more Lassie, there started to be less and less people to make Lassie of. So the amount of people that were becoming Lassie was greater and greater and greater, and the amount of people who could be born was less and less and less until it strained the society so much that people fought each other and just completely wiped each other out. And that was the end of Pulse. So like life only lives on Cocoon now, which is fucked up. So that's a nice dark one. A really interesting one is Analect 10, The Menace Beyond, saying that the arcs were not made for Cocoon. Like that's not why
Yeah,
they're
this one was
around.
good.
Yeah, actually, it's something beyond. Like there's another step after all this, after like Cocoon's destruction and opening Etro's gate, and they've prepared for a threat that's going to come after that. And that's what the arcs are actually for. And that's a very interesting one because we've heard several times during the game about characters theorizing what is the arc for. Is it to train Lassie? Is it to fight Cocoon? We don't know. And then there's this last mystery about it saying like, oh, it could be for something else.
Mm-hmm. It's cool too that it kind of says like these things predate Pulse and also exist on Pulse. I thought that was very cool. I liked her Providence. I was kind of confused by it, but maybe it means something in the full like scope of the games. It's number 9.
Basically, anytime they're referring to her Providence, they mean Etro.
I figured as much, and it lines up with what we know about Etros, which is her Providence sought nothing, her Providence made nothing, but she looked on silent in her sorrow. The goddess pitied mortals, destined as they were to die. So she deigned to intervene in the hour of their greatest peril, and she averted cataclysm that was to be, and put to rest the ones who would have robbed so many of what time fate had ordained. Her compassion did not end this. The goddess pitied also those subjected to the fate of focus, crueler still than death. To them she sent her messengers to deliver hope when all was lost. So that is a sermon of a seerstress named Padra Su Yule.
Yule? Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll get there, yeah.
So again,
If you know, you know.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
stuff with like later games. But interesting where it kind of answers a question that we had about Etros, where it's just like, oh, like she's kind of like the goddess, like the fal'Cie that is on the outside of them, and takes pity on people and is like, well,
Importantly, I think she is not a fal'Cie.
Okay, yeah, so she's like a step above.
An actual goddess, yeah.
Yeah, she's an actual goddess, right. So she's like...
She's just the sea.
Yeah, she's just the sea. What was it? The 11 and 12, I think, just clarify that, like, in fact, what the fal'Cie are looking for is Etro's Gate, and what the deal with Etro's Gate is. And then the last one, which 13. Who would have thought it would be number 13 in a game with 13 chapters?
Yeah,
they sure do commit to the bit.
Yeah, that's right. This one's not so much like ultra interesting in its content, other than the fact that it is called Fabula Nova Crystallis, which is like the universe in which 13 and several other games take place, and the picture for it is the party, and so I think it has like a finality to it of like, this is the last thing that you read, and you get like emotional because of it, because your journey's
specifically
over.
Them noticing the Etro dustings.
Yeah.
That was in Eden.
I don't know how much of this is on the editing of the wiki itself versus like how it appears in game. I didn't get this one in game, but I'm noticing that there's no
with Alex's, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking at Alex's right now. So, but I don't see any italics. So and it seems like the author. It seems to assume like this isn't written in the past like the other Analects.
It's
like,
hard to say.
This
it's
is the current Analect. Like this is written about this. Yeah.
I think you could take it that way. I when I read this, I was like, ooh, maybe this is a modern one. Who knows?
Yeah,
it's
and it says author unknown too. So it's like the fact that it's like a picture of our party and artist unknown is interesting too.
And I think it also does we'll just fucking read it in a second, but I think it does a decent job of like even teasing that there may be more to the story coming along in like different installments.
Because this is supposed to be intro to like a whole new universe. They were like,
right,
trying to launch with a bunch of like, this is gonna be the new like mythos. We're gonna our own expanded universe. We're gonna hang out in.
We're gonna have a versus 13, guys.
Yeah. But it says, children of hallowed pulse scour the earth, searching substance for the door. So, like, that makes sense. They're looking for Etro's Gate, looking for the door. Those of fell Lindsay harvest souls, combing ether for the same. So the fal'Cie and Lindsay, they all have these different ways of trying to do the same thing. The door, once shut, was locked away with despair, its secret key. Sacrifice the one hope of seeing it unsealed, which is what we see during Chapter 13, the despair of the city, everybody's dying, Etro's Gate being opened up.
Yeah, a sacrifice is needed at a large scale to open up Etro's Gate.
Right. And then the last section says, when the twilight of the gods at last descends upon this world, what emerges from the unseeable expanse beyond that door will be but music, and that devoid of words. The lamentations of the goddess Etro as she sobs her song of grief. And so it's interesting because like, I think because we stopped Orphan and we stopped Cocoon, we did not see from what comes from beyond that door, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and one of the reasons that I think maybe this could be like a out of time Analect, like maybe not one written in the past. It still could be, but you could interpret it either way. Is that it kind of says like, oh, but when they finally succeed in doing this, like when they actually are able to open Etro's Gate, it's, there's going to be something out there that like causes the goddess Etro to lament and sing her song of grief, right? So like,
yeah,
who knows? Who knows what it could be? And I actually don't know how that is supposed to be interpreted because I didn't know all of this stuff the first time I played 13, and I haven't played 13 too in like 10 years. So like, who knows? What does this have to do with Type O? I don't know, but apparently it's also in the same universe. Questions. But that is Final Fantasy 13.
We did it.
We did it. All of us did it 100%. Definitely.
Yeah, we got everything in the game.
My mission definitely doesn't say 90%, but
I think what we should do real quick is all 5 of us should just go around and get like 1 minute and a half, 2 minutes to say, what do you think about FF13?
Sure. I'll start. Game good. Very much enjoyed it. By the end of it, I was a little burnt out. I think that's more of how I played it versus anything to do with the game. Playing it kind of on a time crunch week to week could lend to being more frustrated at things like backtracking or not understanding the map or, like at the end of the game, all these missions, that's just extra game in this really fun battle system. So that's really, really fun. Didn't do it for this week, but I honestly don't put it past myself to be like, I had a lot of fun with this battle system. Getting maximum amounts of like experience at this point is much easier, so maybe I'll go back. Oh, that also reminds me, when I first started doing the adamantoids grinding, I forgot to equip the growth egg, so I was like, dude, this is a real fucking slog. I can't believe that this is the fast way. I had burned like 3 of my ether souls without using the growth egg, and I was just like, oh my god, what have I done? So again,
Incredible.
more on me than the game, but yeah, I think a lot of people say they did not like this game. I would hope that they would revisit it someday. A lot of people have told us that they revisited it and enjoyed it, and I hope more people do that, because this game is definitely worth playing, and it's really, really good.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat where like I reminded me a lot of things I liked about 10, which this system is very like kind of make your own difficulty thing where you can kind of like do it the easy way, like Steven says, just like, oh yeah, just play a diversity or solidarity like the entire thing and just smash X. But the amount of stuff that it gives you to do to play with is like really fun, and how deep it is, and also just it feels very responsive with the paradigm system versus kind of micromanaging every character. You can kind of feel like you're actually part of a team that are kind of like coordinating and doing attacks instead of just one after another. I love that, especially for an JRPG, which can sometimes feel really slow.
It does feel very fast. I agree.
You can get actively angry at some of your characters because you're like, God damn it, Vanille, why aren't you using Asuna? Fang is stopped right now. You need to use it. Don't make me turn into a medic right now. I'm busy.
Like I would love to see a remaster of this, just kind of for some things like the map not spinning around, maybe adding the paradigms on a wheel instead of a list, so you can quickly like switch over. Just like you hold down like a paradigm switch and just like kind of like a weapon wheel in like in Doom or something like that. So it's like, okay, I know to just tilt the stick right to go to this paradigm or whatever. It just makes it really fast. It'd be really
Here's
cool.
one for me. Unlock a second chocobo that you can just kind of call, so that when you want to farm certain enemies that are far away from chocobos and far away from your destination and stuff, you can just like use the chocobo whistle and instantly get on a chocobo and run around. Like,
yeah.
Right.
I think my big one would be some way to save paradigm decks.
Yes, that is also my big one. Here's my favorite list. Or at least just cache it. Here's the party you had last time. Here's all the paradigms. We're not just putting these shitty 3 default ones there, you asshole. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Like the new Pokemon lets you save like battle teams, so it'd be cool to like save this configuration and then just like
the configuration, the items, the weapons.
Yeah, you can get the Toys Boys where you have your team for Stompin' Turts. You got your Seath Killers.
Exactly. You got your Bart Smashers.
In that same way, a better way of managing between party members, like sometimes when you're updating the Crystarium or something, like switching through to a different character takes a little longer than I think it really needs to. It's got that animation of like the beautiful Crystarium opening up.
I can't tell how much that is hiding loading or if it is actually just,
true.
Or if it's just for looks.
Yeah.
I would love personally for me a organization of the Crystarium where I think I like the 13-2s method, where it's like a horizontal branch where like as you go, sure, it still has offshoots, but everything is easy to follow, whether it's an up or a down. Because sometimes you're at the Crystarium and you're just holding X, and it's going, and it stops, and then like you think you want to press up for it to keep going, but then it starts going down a path that you don't anticipate. You're like, oh, I just wasted all those points.
Yep.
The way you describe it sounds like it's harder to miss like branches if there's like something you like a whole nother branch or like of thing you forgot to upgrade because you just kind of bypassed it.
Yeah, going back in there sucks too. And I guess other than that, being able to swap out accessories would be really nice too. Like, hey, here's all of the accessories I have on my party leader. I want to just move those all directly to this new party leader that I'm doing in. Like, I know more recent Final Fantasy games have done that and stuff, but just being like, oh, okay, I need to just equip the thing at the top of my thing to get the growth egg off of the character that I just swapped out. And
so in other words, let us do what the greatest game of all time, FF8, did, and let us do the junction switch.
Oh my god, yeah, just switch, just swap.
If there's one good thing about FF8 system, it's that it lets you do junction switch.
And if there's 100 good things about it, it's not gonna make the same joke. Did you have anything else to say, Alex, about the game?
But yeah, I think it might be my favorite now over 10.
That's awesome.
Really?
Just because, I mean, it could be proved because I freaking bought all the Ultimanias. I bought episode 0 and digitized it over the holidays because I was bored. And just like, I really like the the system, but also like the characters. I think the fact that it throws you kind of in the middle of like their call to action is really smart, and you kind of learning about why they're there is a really cool way to do it. And then of course the books kind of help flesh that out stuff too. Like these all just feel like people who have a lot of really cool motivations and emotional centers to their story. I really enjoy all that stuff and finding out how they're all connected, almost like, Lost.
Yeah.
All right, do you all want to go first? Or shall I?
I can go.
Go ahead.
Shit sucks. Don't play it. No.
Spoken like a true speedrunner.
No. I'm not one of those.
Spoken like a true speedrunner, indeed.
I'm not one of those speedrunners who hates every game they run. I generally just gain more respect for the games I run as I do runs. But yeah, I mean, I have my problems with 13. It's probably not even in my top 3 Final Fantasies as like a casual experience, but also it's kind of my favorite game just because I've put so much goddamn time into it. It's a dope speed game. The battle system, I love it so much. My wife is jealous of how much I love the paradigm system. So, yeah.
Why? Because she wishes she could love it as much as you, or because you're spending more time with the paradigm system than you are
in the same way that Frostwad is jealous of how much I love Dark Souls.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, probably similar to that. But yeah. No, that's about all I have to say about the game. Well, I mean, I might have another like hour and a half's worth of talk I could do about the speedrun. But I'll have to wait till next month or so.
Yeah. Ooh.
Could use more mini games like Blitzball.
All right, Ninnyz, you want to rock, paper, scissors for it? All right, here we go. On shoot. 1, 2, 3, shoot.
Oh
one.
My God.
We're
stuck here all day,
shoot.
aren't we?
1, 2, 3, shoot. No, I got it, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Good old
All
Rock,
right.
nothing beats that. I was like, I was convinced that like Ninnyz had like a latency advantage here.
Yeah,
And he was like, I'm just gonna stun lock Curtis by throwing the same thing over and over again until poison.
I should have done that.
Poison kills him.
I should have done that.
I love 13. I think it's great. I thought it was great before, and I do again. I think having a deeper reading into everything shows me that this game is, because I think one of the criticisms of 13 is that it feels a little bit vacuous maybe to a lot of people, where they don't really care about the characters, they don't really care about the events of the world. A lot of things seem to just pop up and come and go quickly, but in looking at it very, very closely under a microscope, it's actually incredible how designed everything is. Like, everything is set up beforehand, everything ends up paying off in a really interesting way, and like designs down to just like the way the Fal'Cie look and how their appearance relates to the events happening in the game when you learn about them is incredible. Like, it is designed with like just the utmost care from top to bottom, and I love that about it. I do have a big criticism about the writing as soon as we get to Pulse, where I think it drops off significantly. I think Pulse at the end of the game is much weaker than the first part of the game, but the shift is away to the gameplay at that point. I think it like gives you all the tools and then says, all right, go crazy. And then the gameplay takes center stage over wrapping the plot up, I think, in some ways. A little bit to its detriment, to be honest with you. But I mean, this is definitely in my like top 5. I think it's the most impressive Final Fantasy. Obviously, like, games have come out after it. 15 came out after this. I still think this is kind of like the high bar in size and like just how grand it is, even compared to 15. And I'm very, in some ways, I kind of think of 16 that's coming out as the next game in the series, because like 14 is obviously an MMO. 15 was part of the Fabula Nova Crystallis.
It was going to be 13 verses.
And then they made it into a full Final Fantasy. So it's really just a 13 spinoff in a weird way. Not to like put that on. I'm not trying to like talk down about 15 for that reason. I'm just saying that like in some ways, to me, this is still the last Final Fantasy that came out. And it kind of, I think it holds its own still. I think going back and playing it, it's like, oh damn, this game is fucking excellent. It's still great.
I can't believe this disrespect you're throwing towards Stranger of Paradise.
Well, I can't
believe Curtis is saying this shit about World of Final Fantasy, dude. Oh my god.
Well, I mean, and I don't know if this is entirely fair, but I think of Stranger of Paradise as a spin-off of Final Fantasy 1. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the spin-off game of their first game. So I kind of think of this as the last entirely new game that they put out. And I think it still deserves its spot as a main entry in the Final Fantasy series, like incredibly so.
We'll find out
game.
next year that it was actually left over from like
yeah. It was going to be 8-2, and like what?
Isn't
Sorry,
there technically
Ninnyz.
a 13-3? Isn't that just Lightning Returns?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it's true.
So my whole thing with this game is every time I've come back to it, I've always come back to it in a different way, and I've always come back to it in a bigger and better way. First day I got this, release day, played the crap out of it. Second time I played it was 3-4 years ago when I vowed to like play all the Final Fantasies and learn to speedrun from each one of them. How foolish of me. And then now
the
this time,
hubris.
yeah. And now when you guys like decided to announce the season, I was like, all right, well, I have to do something different than just a casual play. So I learned the speedrun. And the more I do this game, the more that my love for it grows, and the more I'm distraught that it didn't take off the way that they had envisioned it to. Because if it would have been a smash hit success like across the globe, we would have been dealing with an entirely different lineup of games. And as Curtis said, you know, the writing of it is so intricate, and like it's building towards a grandiose picture, and this is just supposed to be like one period in a time that other games might reference. So it's setting up like its own lore that you get to play through and experience, you know? So it's interesting. You know, it's kind of like some stuff that you get between Dark Souls 1 and 3, where you're like, oh, I remember that event. I was there, you know, like I was the one that did it. So there's that, and I love that. But speaking particularly about the speedrun, I've never had a speedrun be as exhausting, as infuriating, and as fun to do. It's addicting. Every small chapter you do, once you get to like the actual like chapter 3 where you get the paradigm system, you know, you start playing with it a little bit. You don't get like the nuance of it, but then when you start messing around with like animation cancels, like what you need to do for proto, or you start doing things where like you utilize poison and the animation afterwards to stall enemies. That way they may be in the air longer. Like
there's just fucking Guilty Gear now. Like
yeah, there's a rich depth of mechanics to play around with, and the fact that that's not the thing that people always talk about this game, rather than just the straight line that they push you through. And the reason is they push you through that for a very lore specific reason. If you're on the run and you're wanted, in a canonical sense, why do you go back to where they're looking for you at? Mm-hmm. They're all running from something or seeking shelter in one shape, way, or form. So that's always been my counter to everybody's argument of like, oh, it's one directional. Yeah, you would go one direction if you were being hunted too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I still think I'm gonna play devil's advocate now and defend the 13 detractors, I guess. But
traitor.
I don't know. I would. I think if people don't like the linear stuff, then, you know, if they like their exploration, then this game doesn't have that. And if they want that from a Final Fantasy, you know, that's fair enough. I like linear games, but
it makes it more of an adventure game than than the traditional quote unquote like RPG in which you're like kind of going vast worlds and stuff like that. Like the old Final Fantasies, I guess, kind of did that. So, which again, we've mentioned that they were kind of more inspired by like the Call of Duty series and stuff like that. Maybe looking for a more cinematic approach to their games, even more than they have through like the PS1 era. But yeah, it's a different kind of game. They're telling a very specific kind of story, a very intimate, and like, which actually probably the reason why I like the story more than maybe other people, because they're thinking of like, why it doesn't explain very much. Like, that's fine. I'm more invested in the individual people.
Yeah, I agree.
Than the whole world story. Like, that's not really important to me.
I feel like if people kind of looked at it more almost like a Metal Gear game, like a Metal Gear Solid game, then they look at it as like a Final Fantasy game, they might be like more inclined. Not that it's like a stealth game or anything like that, just in terms of like chapters. You have chapters and you wrap up that chapter and that boss and that area, and then you move on and you don't really go back. Like that kind of thing happens in a lot of games, and Final Fantasy is obviously not typically that style. So I understand why people would be like, oh, this isn't what I want. But I feel like they're doing themselves a disservice for doing that. Because if you play a Final Fantasy game, it's pretty much only, and this is a generalization, so that might not be the case for everyone, but you're not really going to be exploring in all of your extra, like when you go back and replay it, right? You're not going to be like, oh, well, let me go and explore what's over here in this part of like before I get to Calm or anything like that. It's like, no, you kind of just make your way through the story and do the things that you want to do and get your team battle ready the way that you want them. And that's pretty much just what this game is the entire time. Like, it does do a lot of hand holding, and a lot of people that criticize it say like it doesn't really open up fully until like hour 20 or 30. Which I also understand, but I think, I don't know, I would be excited to replay this game even after dumping 70 hours into it, because it's like, oh, well, now that I know the system really well, it'll be interesting to kind of go back and do it all again. And I don't have that like fear of being like, oh, well, then I got to go through this long section where there's a lot of like exploration and I need to find my way, or I need to do a Lost Woods type of puzzle kind of thing. Like, it's all just like, oh, no, I just go and play through. And
So is there anything else we want to say about 13?
Good game.
Good game.
All right, Mrzwanzig. It's that time, baby. Tell the audience what our next game is.
Does that mean I get to decide?
No, you have to guess, and if you're wrong, we're kicking you off.
Okay.
I tweeted the logo last night.
Shut up! No, you can't tell him.
Then I have a good guess.
Yeah,
pay attention to your Twitter.
I do want to point out that Curtis, his initial plan was we should tell Mrzwanzig the wrong game that we're doing, and then have him announce it and be like, "Nope, you're wrong. This is the one we're doing."
This is actually. Does anybody have bits for it?
I do have a bit for it.
Oh, Carl, please, by all means, give us a bit.
So this is season 6, right?
Fuck it. I don't know.
Yes.
And we're coming up on season 7. We've done a lot of Final Fantasy games so far. We have done some mainstay games. We've done some spin-off games. But there's one type of Final Fantasy game that we have not really done yet. 7 seasons in, we have yet to do a sequel to a game.
Oh, like the
We've
official
done a couple
sequels.
games in this series that have sequels.
Dirge of Cerberus is a sequel to 7.
I would put that more in the spin-off.
It doesn't have it doesn't have
yeah.
2 after it. Let's put it that way.
So, you know, we want to do one of the 2s.
Oh, I'm doing one of the 2s.
All right, X2.
So we could do, I'm not tired of 13 yet. We could do Final Fantasy 13 too.
Roll right on.
We haven't talked about 10 in a while. That was really fun. I want to see what Yuna's up to. We could do 10 too. I think the one that we should be doing, though, is the true sequel.
After years.
Next season, we are going to be doing Final Fantasy 2.
Hey, Final Fantasy 2, baby.
We're doing Final Fantasy 2.
go.
Not a bit.
That's
Not a bit, yeah,
not a
it's
bit.
like-
No, we are doing Final Fantasy
This is
2.
actually the one. Like,
Text-based adventure Final Fantasy game.
The first sequel in the series.
yeah, the first direct sequel to a Final Fantasy 1, 2, or Final Fantasy 2 as it's known.
I'm reading the plot to Final Fantasy 2, and it seems remarkably similar to Final Fantasy 4, you guys.
Yeah, it's actually, we're doing the
The
first
SNES.
sequel and the first prequel. This is the prequel to Final Fantasy 4. What were you going to say, those ones? You looked, I think, disappointed me.
No, not necessarily disappointed. I was going to say you guys are really like stacking up the fan favorites all in a row. Dirge of Cerberus 13 and 2 all in a row.
Of course.
That's
The
right,
greatest hits of the franchise.
We're gonna be
right.
really struggling for content after this season.
Yeah,
After
there's
the
no more
following
good Final
season.
Fantasies after this. They're all kinda,
exactly.
It's all downhill from here.
You might have to do one that is like the most hated in the series, just so that we can get that controversy going.
I think we're getting ready to.
Yeah, I
don't
don't
know.
know that much about 2, honestly.
I know way more than I should at this point. I ended up speedrunning this, and then I mean, no surprise, but and then I wrote a beginner's guide for this particular game, so I know quite a lot. It's interesting. I think it holds its own. I personally don't like 3 the most. I think 3 is awful, terrible, very bad Final Fantasy, but that's just me.
I've heard many a person say that as well. Now, I will say, having played all of them, having played all of them now, 2 is probably my least favorite, but the pixel remaster definitely made it more palatable. Let's put it that way.
Cool.
So
Yeah. So
We have a lot of versions to pick from this season.
We do.
Again. Very much like when we played the 4 season and the 1 season.
I will say, though,
Now we have the pixel remaster, we have the original one, we have the PSP version.
you know how like every Final Fantasy game like really builds off the history of Final Fantasy, like they bring back things or whatever. I feel like 2 might be referenced more than 1. Like 2 is like
oh wow.
they really started nailing down what they are, because Final Fantasy 1 is D&D, but for the NES, and also it was made in Japan.
And also, they weren't sure the future of their company, so they were just casting shade at like all of their competitors, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Yo, Link is dead," or
yeah, that's
Erdrick
right. Yeah,
is dead.
Erdrick,
Fuck
yeah.
you.
And then FF2 really does feel like, oh shit, this is the first Final Fantasy. So that'll be fun to get into.
I'm excited. I haven't played it before. So
Really? I mean,
Nice.
that's gonna be so exciting to show you something. I didn't think we'd have anything we could show Mrzwanzig, frankly.
Oh no, you've probably played more of the games than I have.
Oh my god.
Hell
Oh
yeah.
my god.
I just play some of them a lot.
Yeah, he just has more hours logged than you ever could.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I am very excited about it.
I guess we're going to have to find a 2 expert. I guess that's Ninnyz as close as we can get.
Yeah.
Because every game we find like a new,
I know a couple people who are.
an auteur.
Yeah, I know a couple people who are in the 2. So
We need to find the shade amp of Final Fantasy 2.
that's right.
Yeah, where's
exactly
our,
right.
our 2 speedrunners who, there's dozens
I
of
think
us.
Dozens, Marge, dozens.
so. I think this game is obviously going to be a lot shorter. It's probably going to be a much shorter season, right? I would imagine.
We'll see.
Oh, we'll see.
It definitely has plot points.
Okay.
It is not FF1.
Okay, but yeah, it won't be FF1, but it'll probably be presumably a little less than this. I mean, this
Probably
is only 13
so, yeah.
chapters. So.
Ninnyz, you'll be our correspondent, being the speedrunner expert, right, for Pixel Remaster?
Of course.
Great.
Well,
thanks.
I guess that's really all I have to say. Is there anything? Any last words? Mrzwanzig, you had a project coming up, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I have 2 quick things to talk about before we sign off, I guess. One is a plug. So I've sort of been alluding to it a little bit throughout the episode, but yes, I am currently working on a YouTube video chronicling the history of Final Fantasy XIII any percent. Kind of a, if you're familiar with Summoning Salt and that whole genre of YouTube video that's sprung up over the past few years. I'm making one of those. It'll probably be the only one I ever make because I can't imagine getting this passionate to do this amount of work for any other game. But yeah, I'm currently in the recording the voiceover stage. It should hopefully be out next month. I'm not doing the editing myself because I don't know how, and I can't be bothered to learn it for a video that's going to be an hour and a half. But yeah, so the look out for that. Smash that subscribe button. Is that still something people say?
Yo,
Yeah,
I'm actually
absolutely.
stoked as hell about it, frankly.
I am very much like, this is highly anticipated for me. I'm so excited to see it.
Hop in our Discord. We'll probably
You'll probably be posting it all
if
over the
anything
place,
in
yeah.
progress happens.
Yeah, I'll be posting it all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Follow Mrzwanzig. Mhm.
And there was one other thing that I promised you guys before the season started, because it came up in Discord at one point in the lead up to this season, I believe. And I was out of town at the time, so I couldn't share the link because I didn't have it with me. But now that we're here, I gotta show you guys this. So a little bit of context. About 7 years ago, Georgia van... I can't actually pronounce this properly. I guess that's a Dutch origin name. Georgia van Kuylenburg. I think she pronounces it differently. She's Australian. She's the voice actress for Vanille.
Oh, okay.
And she actually does some charity work. She has her own charity. And she was doing a stream on Twitch playing Final Fantasy XIII, raising money for her charity. This was really cool. She's a really cool person. And she's also voiced a few other characters. One is, I believe it's a character called Sydney from the game Payday 2, which I am completely unfamiliar with outside of this. But it's a bit of that character apparently has a bit of a different temperament, shall we say, to Vanille. It's a bit more explicit in certain
Nice.
ways. And during this stream that she did, she said, if we get X amount of money, you know what I'll do? I'll do a line from Sydney in the Vanille voice. And through the magic of the internet, we now have this immortalized, or so I thought, because when I went to go look for it earlier, the link for it was dead, so I had to use the Wayback Machine to get it.
Oh boy.
I'll send it to Alex later so that he can put it in if he wants. But for you guys, so that you can hear it and react to it now, I'll just post it in the chat. This is the Wayback Machine link that should hopefully give it to you. And
Clicking
then
it now.
we might have to count down so we can hit play on it together.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
like a 4-second sound clip.
All right, somebody count down.
3, 2, 1.
Sit on my dick, cocksucker.
That is
Love
fucking
that.
amazing. Oh my god.
So there you go.
Oh man.
Treasure. That is a treasure.
I need to oh my god, that is so fucking good.
This reminds me of there's some cast members from Steven Universe who are just extras, like walking on the street in Grand Theft Auto 5, so you can just hear just one of the main characters just screaming just profanities at the top of her
That's
lungs.
awesome.
That's so good.
After she gets run over by a car.
What about you, Ninnyz? You got anything else? You got anything to announce?
No, I'm just kind of doing my own thing, just trying to get better at cooking, get off of my plateau. Been working on my Japanese, and I guess the newest development is just kind of like messing around with like photography more. At MagFest, I was able to use the actual cameras for the stream less, so I was flexing new muscles with photography, and I've had a couple of good reviews from friends and people that know photography a little bit well. So maybe I have a future in like getting into shows and doing show photography every once in a while. So pretty excited about that. Who doesn't love a free concert, and who doesn't love to be like up front and close and personal with the bands?
Yo, hell yeah.
I forgot to ask Mrzwanzig. So either order, where can we find either of you online?
Twitch.tv/Mr. Mrzwanzig.
Delightful.
I'd say the two main ways is just like Instagram for general photos, and that's just Ninnyz, and then twitch.tv/Ninnyz for my streams. I'm only streaming every Monday and Tuesday, trying to do Sundays, but I mean, life has a way of taking free time away from me.
I actually haven't streamed this year yet because I've been busy on this video project, but once that's done, I'm gonna be doing streams again.
Yeah.
What about you guys, Carl and Alex?
Oh, you guys know where I am. Usually twitch.tv/CarlGerm. More Dark Souls speedruns, all of that. The Discord, I always try and be more active in it, but like we were all saying, life finds a way to just get too hectic, so I'm not as active in there as I would like to be, but I'm always lurking.
In my heart and mind, I always know that Carl is kicking it somewhere in Undegberg.
Yeah, I'm always in Dark Souls jail. Exactly.
How about you, Alex? What you got going on?
Well, since this season is over, I'm opening commissions or freelance work now. If anyone wants me to edit their projects,
Hire Alex.
So you can find me.
Please hire Alex.
Where can people go to find you?
You can find me on Twitter, MAL4M. Yeah, because I'm gonna have a little bit of free time for the next month or so, I guess. So.
How about you, Curtis?
I got 2 shows coming up. March 17th at Milk Boy. It'll be a Zaku show. It's gonna be a great time. Come out. I think that's St. Patrick's Day. So if going to a bar and getting wasted and not hearing music is no fun, then come to this bar and get wasted and hear my band, because that's fun. Or don't drink, whatever.
Yeah, be safe, because St. Patty's Day is a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. Also on the 4th of March, even though it's earlier, but I'm going to announce it second, because I'm playing a house show. If you are near Philadelphia, get in our Every FNFF Discord, send me a message, and I will tell you where that's at. Obviously, it's Ask a Punk rules.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ask a Punk.
Is it weird to announce a Ask a Punk house show? Don't care. I'm doing it. If I come hang out. You can find me on twitch.tv/TwirlinCurtis. That is no G, just Twirlin Curtis, and same at Twitter. And that is all I have to say. Alex, what's up there, my Chocobro Dudeski?
What is up there? Thank you, as always, to Masashi Amauzu for this game's wonderful soundtrack. And was it Leslie Lewis?
Yeah, Leslie. Is that right?
Lewis.
Leona Lewis.
Leona
yeah.
Lewis.
Leona Lewis. I'm sorry. All the music in this game is wonderful.
The Every FNFF podcast has been forgiven by the Leona Lewis fan base.
Yeah, be sure to follow us, subscribe to keep up on updates, because, you know, hiatus, who knows what'll pop up in the in the interim, and that's the word I'm looking for.
In the interim.
There it is.
Wonder if anything would pop up.
In the interim, yeah, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. You can call us or text us at 530-MATERIA, and you can find us at Every FNFF on Twitter, Instagram, and hop on our Discord in the show notes. You can find that. And when the twilight of the gods at last descends upon this world, what emerges from the unseeable expanse beyond that door will be but music, and that devoid of podcasts.
We can only hope.
See you next season.
See you next season.
See ya in 2.
See ya.
Bye.